Chapter 1605. The silver radiance of the worldly purity body appeared on the surface of Long Yu's body. In front of him was an empty, silent galaxy. Hidden within the darkness were 3 legions of soul race sovereigns. Even though Huo Hao couldn't see their bodies, he could still sense their powerful mental energy fluctuations. These 3 legions of 10,000 soul race sovereigns had surrounded Long Yu in 3 different directions. Long Yu didn't retreat. Instead, he charged into the enemy's encirclement. The soul race sovereigns found this a little strange. Is this kid here to die? However, they didn't have much time to think. If they didn't make a move soon, the Dark Flame Lone Ghost, a high-grade modified Divine Source artifact, would fall into their hands. They didn't doubt that a Divine Source artifact like this could kill them. Just by looking at the power of the Dark Flame Lone Ghost that had just annihilated the Divine Water Race Sovereigns, they knew that it wasn't something that a mere Sovereign's secret realm could withstand. Therefore, nearly 30,000 Soul Race Sovereigns, regardless of whether they were Sovereign's secret realm or Great Sovereign, all launched their attacks at Long Yu. Boundless mental energy waves intertwined and condensed in the air, forming countless extremely powerful mental energy storms. These mental energy storms were divided into different elements. Different types of mental energy couldn't be fused together, so they all swept towards Long Yu, covering the sky and covering the earth. The space around him was completely enveloped. Long Yu. Many people in the surroundings were extremely shocked when they saw this scene. Some of them didn't know what Long Yu was capable of, so they couldn't understand why Long Yu was practically throwing away his life. However, something shocking happened very quickly. As the silver light condensed on the surface of Long Yu's body, it turned into a mirror. The moment the silver mirror appeared, the countless spiritual attacks were bounced back with 10 times the power. They whistled through the air and crashed into the armies of the 3 soul races' rulers. So powerful! Everyone was dumbfounded. The 4 beast race ruler legions had even forgotten about their opponents at this moment. Even the remaining Silverstone and Divine Water race ruler legions were looking in that direction in shock. That incredibly powerful human was actually blocking the simultaneous attacks of 3 soul race ruler legions by himself. What was even more shocking was that he seemed to have withstood it. Even the 3 alien demigods found it hard to believe that they had seen such a scene. 1 against 30,000. Even they might not be able to do it if they were on the spot, right? Just what in the world was up with this human? First, he displayed a high-level modified Divine Essence artifact. Then, he did something as terrifying as facing off against 3 armies of beast sovereigns all by himself. Could it be that this place was a secret training ground for the humans and demons? Besides, he had never seen these 3 demigods before. The Divine Water race and the Silverstone race were far from the human race and the monster race's territory, so they rarely encountered each other. However, the Soul race was different. The Soul race often fought with the monster race, so they were very clear about the strength of the monster race and the human race. Why had such a powerful being suddenly appeared? Also, these demigods were definitely not weak. Were they new demigods? The Eclipse Moon ancient territory had just ended. It was normal for the major races to have some new demigod. However, even if there were new demigods in the human race and the monster race, shouldn't they be training in their own territory? How could they come to a place so far away from the human race and the monster race's territory? Unless a powerful demigod activated a space-time tunnel, it was impossible for them to cross such a long distance. But why did they come here? Long Yu's performance shocked the 3 demigods in the field. They thought of many things, and all of them became very vigilant towards Long Yu. To be on the safe side, they would turn around and run right now, leaving the rest of the Dominator Legion to intercept the humans and demons. The 3 demigods would definitely be able to escape. After all, what they had seen right now was beyond their imagination. It was very likely to pose a great threat to the 3 species. However, their desire for a high-level modified divine essence artifact made them stay despite the risk. They would not give up just like that. So what if Long Yu could fight 30,000 alone? The three demigods were also existences that could do this. As long as they killed their respective demigod opponents, they would be able to easily obtain that high-level modified divine essence artifact, the Dark Flame Ghost. This path seemed to be easy. It seemed like a high-level divine essence artifact was right in front of them. However, they did not know that they were still very far away from a high-level modified divine essence artifact. On the battlefield, Long Yu activated the world-cleansing soul mirror and reflected a large portion of the mental shockwaves back at him, instantly wiping out a large swath of the nearby soul sovereigns. However, the world-cleansing soul mirror quickly lost its power, and an even more ferocious mental shockwave blasted towards him. Illusion Field. Long Yu activated the Dark Flame Ghost and began to roar and slaughter in the battlefield. As for himself, he had completely turned into nothingness under the cover of this first-grade god formation. Even those mental blast storms would not be able to harm him for a short period of time. However, the first-grade god formation of the illusion field could not make Long Yu invincible. This was because there were some soul race members among the three sovereigns who knew how to use the Tao of Nothingness. They were actually able to use their special mental and soul power to disintegrate the entire illusion field. The Dark Flame Ghost was instantly enraged. It roared and swallowed group after group of soul race sovereigns. The three soul race sovereigns had long since fallen into chaos. They were basically dodging the Dark Flame Ghost's attack. They had even forgotten to deal with Long Yu. After all, more than half of the soul race sovereigns present had been killed after the world-cleansing soul mirror's attack. The remaining ones were scared out of their wits. They did not have the courage to face Long Yu head-on. The three soul race sovereigns began to scatter. Naturally, Long Yu wouldn't let them escape so easily. Even the 88 members of the Ghost Shadow Tribe had rushed over. They activated the Hell Ghost Sealing Array formation, enveloping a large area of the starry sky in the vicinity. As for the soul race sovereigns that had escaped earlier, they were taken care of by Diao Feng, Si Yuanbai, Shi Yengu, Shu Chan, Duguijian, and Yen Huanma. The Void Nether Dragon Blade carried everyone through the void. In a flash, it would catch up to the soul race sovereigns that had escaped the furthest. The result that Long Yu wanted was that he would not let a single one escape. On the other side, the four monster race clans had already clashed with the remaining foreign sovereigns. However, they were only delaying their opponent. With the help of the 9 underworld sphere, there was no need for them to fight head-on. Although the foreign sovereigns were slowly advancing towards Long Yu had already killed more than 90% of the soul race sovereigns present before the remaining foreign sovereigns could even get close. Even if the real illusion field was destroyed, he still had the ability to turn into nothingness. However, when he turned into nothingness, the nearby demigod of the Silverstone race split his attention and threw a silver shockwave at Long Yu. This shockwave directly shattered half of his illusion field, allowing the other soul race clans to discover his location. Unfortunately, this did not delay him for too long. The silver light on Long Yu's surface continued to flash. Any mental attacks that landed on his body were blocked by the silver light of the worldly purity body. They were unable to penetrate his mind and soul. The defense of the worldly purity body had already surpassed the level that these soul race clans could break through. In less than 15 minutes, there were less than 1,000 sovereigns left from the 3 soul race sovereigns present. The remaining ones were scattered, so Long Yu could not be bothered to deal with them. It was more than enough to leave them to Shi Yengu and the others. The ancient Azura Palace instantly grew in size. The power of the disclosure-level Azura characters rapidly condensed on the battlefield. The Azura light continuously shot out from the ancient Azura Palace. Every ray of pitch-black Azura character light could completely kill a soul race clansman that was preparing to escape. The 4 types of energy that formed the 4 symbols death prison were extremely destructive to the mind and soul. It was a piece of cake for them to deal with the Soul Race clansmen. With a few of them cleaning up the battlefield, Long Yu did not need to pay attention to the remnants of the battlefield on this side. He flew towards the Blood Demon Race's army of sovereigns as fast as he could. His figure flickered, and he appeared in front of the Blood Demon Race's army of sovereigns. He faced the second army of sovereigns from the Divine Water Race and waved the Dark Flame Ghost Chain. He had to clean up the entire army of sovereigns as fast as possible. Long Yu did not pause. After the Dark Flame Ghost Chain appeared, pitch-black flames instantly burned the sky. The entire void was filled with the aura of death. The minds and souls of the Divine Water Race sovereigns were completely destroyed. Then, their bodies were devoured by Long Yu's balls of the 9 underworlds. In this area, Long Yu had already condensed quite a few balls of the 9 underworlds. Therefore, the flow of time in the entire area had been slowed down. Compared to Long Yu, it was as if the movements of these foreign races had been slowed down by 70%. They did not have the strength to dodge or counterattack at all. The speed at which they were being cleaned up was extremely fast. However, in order to condense so many devil dust clones, Long Yu had used up countless elixirs. These elixirs all had the effect of recovering energy. Furthermore, each elixir had a different medicinal effect. They were not the same type. They were specially refined by Liao Lele in preparation for this fierce battle. After consuming so many elixirs, Long Yu was barely able to maintain the consumption of energy in his body. When he had almost wiped out the army of sovereigns from the Divine Water Race, he finally could not hold on any longer. With a loud bang, he chose to self-detonate in the void. He needed to reconstruct his body and consume the elixirs that he had consumed earlier to replenish his energy. This scene caused the rest of the foreign races to be stunned. What was this guy doing? Why did he suddenly self-detonate? Chapter 1606. Long Yu's sudden self-detonation caused the surrounding demonic humans to be at a loss. Even the masses of the Void Galaxy who didn't know the truth were dumbfounded. What was Lord Long Yu doing? Why did he suddenly self-detonate in the middle of a good fight? But before they realized what was going on, Long Yu's body was quickly reconstructed in the void. His Devil Dust Heart martial arts secret technique had been cultivated to the peak, and there were many ancient god tattoos engraved in the ancient god brain domain, which increased the body reconstruction effect of the Devil Dust Heart by more than 5 times. Even if Long Yu self-destructed, if he wanted to rebuild his body, he would only need 2 breaths of time. As long as the Devil Dust Heart was not destroyed, he would be immortal. At least, that was the case in terms of physical body. Just like the Jiryo Dragon Emperor, even though his spirit and soul had been sealed in the 9 Hells prison steel by the Envoy of Death, his physical body still broke through the seal and was reconstructed. That was the strength of the Devil Dust Heart. After all, it was a secret martial art technique obtained from the 9 Hells prison steel. After 2 breaths, Long Yu's physical body was completely reconstructed. The following battles were not too difficult for him. After all, with the assistance of the Blood Demon Clan and the other 3 armies of demonic cultivators, it was only a matter of time before he killed the rest of the armies of demonic cultivators. He had to do it before Consort Yu and the others were at a disadvantage. At this moment, the battle of the demigods on the battlefield had begun to favor the aliens. The 3 alien demigods performed all kinds of deified techniques, and their power density was 12 times and 13 times higher than that of regular people, which was a lot higher than the power density of the new demigods such as Yi Ziwei and Yu Fei, who were only 10 times higher. After they exerted their full strength, even Consort Yu, Yi Ziwei, and Ji Tao found it a bit difficult to resist. Long Yu had to speed up. Right now, the Dark Flame Ghost was his most common method of wiping out enemies in a large area. However, he still had other methods that could wipe out enemies in a large area. Although they weren't as powerful as the Dark Flame Ghost, they could still kill quite a few foreign sovereigns. Divinized Divine Ability. Dragon Breath of the Nine Underworlds. An enormous illusory dragon of the Nine Underworlds appeared behind him. Then, a wave of terrifying dragon breath of the Nine Underworlds burst forth, instantly piercing through the void for 100 kilometers and killing over 100 divine water race sovereigns in its path. Divinized Divine Ability. Before becoming a demigod, Long Yu was the only one who could perform it. It was the reward he received in the eroding moon ancient domain. Those alien races couldn't imagine such power, let alone resist it. When Long Yu reached the peak of the 7th phase Great Dominator, it meant that in this world, apart from demigods, no one would be his match. The Jade branding mark continued to take effect, weakening the power density of the opponents he came into contact with by half, turning them into existences that were even thinner than cotton. He easily penetrated them, killed them, and burned them to ashes. Unfortunately, under the attack of the dragon breath of the Nine Underworlds, those foreign races that were killed were completely destroyed in body and soul. Even the ball of the Nine Underworlds was unable to devour anything. This was something that couldn't be helped. Fortunately, he would soon be able to devour demigod realm foreign races, as Long Yu thought to himself. He continuously used the 3 divinized divine abilities, Dragon Breath of the Nine Underworlds, Soul Seal Siphon, and Hand of the Nine Underworlds. However, the one that killed the most opponents was still the Dragon Breath of the Nine Underworld. Both the Soul Seal Siphon and Hand of the Nine Underworlds could kill some of the foreign sovereigns, but there weren't many of them, so they weren't very effective. Only the Dragon Breath of the Nine Underworlds was an offensive divine ability, so it was the most effective. When the 3 divine abilities were used at the same time, coupled with the high-grade Dark Flame Ghost Lock, Long Yu's speed in killing the foreign sovereigns increased by at least a third. This was already a very good result. The Dark Flame Ghost Lock alone was very fast, but Long Yu still felt that it wasn't enough. He had to kill them as fast as he could. The foreign sovereigns' armies all collapsed. Even the ones that hadn't been targeted by Long Yu yet felt fear in their hearts, and they all began to flee into the distant void. Long Yu had sent the sovereign legions of the 4 monstrous race armies to intercept them, but they were simply unable to stop them. He then had the Nether Void Dragon Blade lead Sunset Dance and the others in pursuit. Under the pursuit of the Nether Void traversal, not a single outlander could escape from the Nether Void. The experts of the Ghost Shadow tribe also hid in the nearby void, specifically targeting the foreign sovereigns who tried to escape. More importantly, Long Yu had already ordered Man Xian, Chi Hua, and a few hundred other experts to spread out along the escape routes of the foreign sovereigns' armies. No matter where the foreign sovereigns tried to escape, the scattered existences would eventually be wiped out. Not a single one remained. The foreign sovereigns' armies had completely collapsed. After Long Yu wiped out the 2 sovereigns' armies of the Divine Water Tribe, he didn't bother with the 3 remaining Silverstone sovereigns' armies. The 3 sovereigns' armies had been scared out of their wits, and they had long since collapsed. It was time for the 4 sovereigns' armies to practice their skills. There couldn't be a better time for them to take action. If they couldn't even win against such a defeated opponent, then they were too weak. Long Yu immediately turned around and headed in the direction of the fierce battle between the demigods. This scene caused the others in the surroundings to be shocked once more. Did this kid feel that dealing with the sovereigns' armies wasn't enough, and he wanted to challenge the demigods? If it were any other 7th stage sovereigns, they would probably be instantly killed by the shockwaves of the battle even if they only got close to the demigod. But Long Yu wasn't afraid at all. Long Yu, he's really strong. It's hard to imagine what kind of super expert he would be if he could become a demigod. Looks like it's time to expand the territory of the Void Galaxy. The cultivation resources we've taken from the humans and monsters are almost all used up. That's true. Speaking of which, we have to work hard too. We can't completely rely on Long Yu and the others to survive. Conversations like this kept popping up among the four sovereigns' armies. Some of them had been displeased at first. Why did they come to this remote place instead of staying in the army? And now, they finally considered the Void Galaxy as their home, the base of their development. This feeling was completely different from when they were in the army on the battlefield. Back then, these fellows mainly wanted to fight for others, and rarely thought about things like the survival of the human race. Even without them on the battlefield, the army was still a solid barrier that the alien races couldn't easily break through. But things were different now. The Void Galaxy was their home, their back garden. No alien races were allowed to set foot there. Right now, they were protecting their own homes. They were personally participating in the battle. Once they retreated, the situation of the entire battlefield might be changed. This sense of honor and glory spurred them to fight to the death against the non-humankind. They wouldn't let a single non-humankind live. When they saw Long Yu flying toward the battlefield of demigods, they were even more impressed. As expected of Long Yu, he dared to fight against the powerful demigods of the alien races when he was only a 7th-rank Great Dominator. It was said that he had helped kill 2 demigods of the Ice Gods and 1 demigod of the Desolate Gods. It wasn't a lie. At that time, Long Yu only played a minor role in restraining the alien races. But now, once he took action, the victory would be decided. The netherworld ball appeared above his head and swallowed all the light, time, and space around like a black hole. As Long Yu stepped forward, the influence of the netherworld ball on the flow of time directly covered the demigod of the divine water race that was closest to him. "You're courting death." The demigod of the divine water race was furious. It didn't expect that Long Yu would come to its door before it went to trouble him. Wasn't he looking down on it too much? Its gaze immediately locked onto the dark flame ghost chain on Long Yu's body. At this moment, the dark flame ghost was like a giant snake covered in pitch-black flames, wrapping around Long Yu from head to toe, making him look like an emissary from hell. In Long Yu's ancient god brain, the effect of the star branding tattoo was activated. Covered by the effect of the sphere of the abyss, the demigod of the divine water race immediately found that its power density dropped sharply. It was originally 12 times, but now it was only 6 times. It wouldn't be a problem if it was facing Long Yu, but more importantly, Yi Ziwei and the demigod stone statues of the multi-winged race were dealing with it. In the next moment, Yi Ziwei knew that this was the best opportunity. While the demigod of the divine water race was distracted, she finally performed her long-hidden killer move. Suppression of 10,000 lightning. The thunder mark of Genesis on her forehead instantly burst out the terrifying power of the thunder mark of Genesis, which was a derivative of the power of the metal class. More importantly, the suppression of 10,000 lightning was the ultimate awakening skill that she and her thunder mark of Genesis had awakened to the 12th level. Although the power of this move wasn't particularly powerful, it was already the most powerful move for Yi Ziwei right now. Also, the effect was obvious when it was used to deal with the demigod of the divine water race, whose power density had been reduced by half. Countless divine thunders burst out of the thunder seal of primordium like countless mountains of lightning from all directions, completely suppressing the demigod of the divine water race. Woo! A painful howl burst out of the demigod of the divine water race. The pain of the suppression of 10,000 lightning made his whole body suffer. The demigod body of the divine water race that was in the shape of a gray wave suddenly shrank a lot, and it was devoured by the supreme divine thunder. Then, the demigod stone statue of the multi-winged race, under the control of Consort Yu, also burst out the most powerful strength. At this moment, the sandstorm gathered into a sand saber, fell from the sky, and slashed the demigod of the divine water race that was suppressed by 10,000 lightning. The entire body of the divine water race was cut into halves. Devour! Long Yu raised his hand, and the terrifying power of the sphere of the abyss finally fell on the demigod of the divine water race. In the infinite lightning, Long Yu's eyes were full of expectation. Chapter 1607. Dark beams of light were bursting out of the sphere of Tartarus and quickly enshrouded the demigod of the divine water race. The demigod of the divine water race, who had been cut into halves, was still struggling to reunite and recover his body, but the dark, entangling rays of light that blossomed from the sphere of Tartareth completely separated the two halves of the demigod of the divine water race and devoured them with terrifying power. This was the first time that Long Yu had tried to kill a demigod with his own strength, and it was also the first time that he had tried to kill a powerful being in the demigod level. He could sense that the power of the demigod of the divine water race was flowing into the sphere of Tartarus. The power of the divine characters and the tissues of the demigod were all devoured by the sphere of Tartarus. Although the demigod of the divine water race was still struggling, he couldn't stop the process of being devoured at all. Seeing that, Yi Ziwei immediately flashed to the side and ignored the demigod of the divine water race. Instead, she went to help Consort Yu fight against the demigod of the Silverstone race, who seemed to have gone mad. As for the demigod stone statue of the multi-winged race, it also left the area under Consort Yu's control and went to help Consort Yu resist the demigod of the soul race, who had burst out all his strength. The demigod stone statue of the multi-winged race didn't have a soul, so the attacks launched by the demigod of the soul race were completely useless. No matter what kind of attacks the demigod of the soul race launched at Consort Yu, the demigod stone statue of the multi-winged race would resist them easily and then try to fight back. In the 2 versus 1 situation, Consort Yu gradually gained the upper hand. Ji Tao and Yi Ziwei worked together and gradually suppressed the demigod of the Silverstone race. On Long Yu's side, he could clearly feel that the sphere of Tartarus was devouring more and more power. Heavily wounded, the demigod of the divine water race couldn't resist the sphere of Tartarus's devouring at all. After about half an hour, all the demigods of the divine water race were finally devoured by the sphere of Tartarus. So far, the divine water race that came to attack the Void Galaxy this time was completely annihilated. From the demigods to the dominators, none of the divine water race survived. Long Yu's ball of Tartareth, on the other hand, had reached the strongest level ever after it swallowed the demigods of the divine water tribe. Within the range of its power, the flow of time was slowed down by more than 80%. It meant that Long Yu could slow down the flow of time by 5 times. When it came to cultivation, a day of cultivation for others was equivalent to 5 days of cultivation for him. If others cultivated for a year, it was equivalent to him cultivating for 5 years. This effect was practically invincible. It was a pity that he was the only one who could use this method. Otherwise, if he could make the entire Void Galaxy fall into a zone where the flow of time was slowed down, how fast would the cultivation of everyone in the Void Galaxy improve? If I swallow the demigod of the Silverstone race, Long Yu couldn't help but think that. Then, the demigod of the Silverstone race suffered. The demigod of the Silverstone race was already at a disadvantage when facing Ji Tao and Yi Ziwei at the same time. Now that Long Yu had joined in, the demigod of the Silverstone race's power was reduced by half, and he had no ability to resist at all. Ji Tao instantly unleashed the eternal-level Ghost Divine Language, and Yi Ziwei used the final awakening skill of Thousand Thunders again, smashing the demigod of the Silverstone race into pieces. Then, the power of the sphere of Tartarus spread out, and countless entangled beams of light covered the enormous body of the demigod of the Silverstone race, as if it were the end of the world, and began to devour it. Devour! With a thought from Long Yu, the sphere of Tartarus grew again, and the demigod of the Silverstone race became the nutrition of the sphere of Tartarus in the irresistible power. In the end, there was only one demigod of the soul race left. It was a pity that the demigod didn't have a body and couldn't be devoured by the sphere of Tartarus. But with everybody working together, he was soon killed. His soul and spirit were completely destroyed, and there was no trace of him in this world. In this battle, the Void Cosmos had a great victory, and everybody who participated in the battle had gained a lot. After all, the opponent had a total of 9 foreign race sovereign armies. Even if Long Yu had devoured more than half of them, there were still 30 to 40,000 foreign race small worlds remaining. They could search for many things from them. Just the items of creation alone could be found, and there might even be divine text essences and so on. All in all, those things belonged to other people who participated in the battle, and Long Yu didn't need them. The best use for those resources was to give them to other people in the Void Cosmos to develop and grow stronger. Yi Ziwei and Consort Yu, on the other hand, didn't find anything useful in this battle. After all, the 2 demigods had been devoured by Long Yu's sphere of Tartarus, and even their small worlds had become the nutrition of the sphere of Tartarus. Nothing was left. Only the small worlds of the soul race remained, and they could enter and search. Of course, it was a demigod's small world after all, and there would definitely be a lot of good things in it. At least a few of the essence of divine language and the essence of the absolute beginning could be found. For demigods, it was too easy to get some essence of divine language and the essence of the absolute beginning. And every single divine character essence was worth a considerable amount of money. Long Yu didn't bother to search for that part either. He left it to Yi Ziwei and Consort Yu. As for Long Yu, he was digesting the changes brought about by the sphere of Tartarus's devouring. Without a doubt, the sphere of Tartarus had devoured 30 to 40,000 alien sovereigns and 2 alien demigods. It was almost a world-shaking change. Right now, the sphere of Tartarus could create an area where time flowed 6 times faster. For Long Yu, the time needed for him to improve was even shorter. If the sphere of Tartarus was by his side at all times, Long Yu would be able to try to break through to the demigod level in a month at most. During this month, Long Yu planned to head to the Soul Clan's territory to spend his time. At the same time, he would be able to obtain some shadow essence, which was quite useful to him. Most importantly, he still wanted the 9 nether sphere to devour more. If it was the soul race that had been killed by the dark flame ghosts, the sphere of Tartarus wouldn't be able to devour anything. But if it was the soul race that had been killed in other ways, and only their mental and spiritual power had been destroyed, it could still devour some power. In the battle just now, time was too tight, so Long Yu could only give up on the soul race and clean them up one after another. But if he entered the soul race's territory alone, there was no need to be in such a hurry. He could totally take his time and let the sphere of Tartarus devour some powerful soul race members. The effect should be pretty good. However, Long Yu had to be careful in all his actions. If he encountered a demigod of the soul race, the situation would be quite bad. After all, the all-purpose life-saving technique of turning into nothingness was useless in front of a demigod expert. Of course, before he officially set off, Long Yu had to take care of some things first. The battle was over. No one knew when the next wave of attacks from the Divine Water Race, the Silverstone Race, and the Soul Race would be, but during this period, the galaxy would experience a relatively large wave of development. After all, many people had obtained a lot of good things in this battle. As for Long Yu and the others, they first went back and held a celebration banquet for everyone. Then, they celebrated that Yi Ziwei could step into the demigod realm and become a peak existence in the galaxy, and even the entire human race and the demon race. I didn't expect you to give that ultimate creation item to Yi Ziwei, Long Yu said to Consort Yu with a smile. Her talent is indeed the best among all the people I know. Consort Yu pursed her lips and smiled. Yi Ziwei toasted Long Yu. Long Yu, I left one step earlier than you, but you'll catch up very soon. By then, I'm afraid I won't be a match for you. We're all on the same side. There's no need to talk about opponents. Long Yu shook his head with a smile, picked up his wine cup and downed it in one gulp. At the same time, he thought of Red Oriole and Moon Song. Those two girls were also absorbing the ultimate creation item. They should be close to becoming demigods, right? Although Red Oriole and Moon Song were slightly slower than Yi Ziwei, it didn't mean that they were weaker than her. The main reason was that Yi Ziwei had been cultivating wholeheartedly. She had reached the 7th phase Great Ruler Realm before the two girls, and had started consolidating her cultivation a little earlier than them. But then again, Red Oriole and Moon Song should be close. Long Yu didn't plan to wait for them to come out of seclusion. Instead, he planned to leave first and take a stroll around the Soul Race's territory. Before he left, he wanted to get some benefits for everyone in the galaxy. He returned to his little world, went to the area where the Bone Race and the Remnant Race lived, and called out to Yu Wufang. As you can see, I'm on the verge of becoming a demigod. In fact, I even acquired a God Spirit martial technique from the Eroding Moon ancient region. Those unbounded martial techniques you have won't be of much use to me anymore, Yang Qi said coolly. Through the nether void dragon blade, Long Yu coldly conveyed these words to Yu Wufang. Long Yu didn't feel any pity for the foreign races. Even though they had given him a lot of benefits, they were no longer of any use to him. Long Yu naturally didn't want to keep them. When Yu Wufang heard this, he was extremely panicked. But he didn't panic. Instead, he quickly thought of a solution. The Bone Race has a spell that allows us to swear allegiance. If we swear allegiance to you, can we continue to live? Yu Wufang conveyed his meaning to the Nether Void Dragon Blade, and then Little Void conveyed it to Long Yu. Oh! Hearing this, Long Yu was a little interested. Then Yu Wufang explained that the so-called Oath of Loyalty would allow him to know everything that was going through the minds of the Bone Race clansmen. Of course, that included the location of the unending grade martial skills that they had yet to hand over. Simply put, if the Bone Race swore allegiance to Long Yu, then he would have control of everything the Bone Race had. Chapter 1608. If that was the case, Long Yu was quite interested. However, there were 300,000 Bone Race members in total. Long Yu couldn't be bothered to control them all. Since that was the case, he'd let them become followers of others. After swearing their loyalty, these Bone Race members would have the status of followers. Yu Wufang, swear your loyalty to me first. As for the other Bone Race and Remnant races, I'll let my people choose freely. Those who are willing to swear their loyalty can continue to live as my followers. Those who are unwilling will be completely annihilated from the void. Long Yu said to Yu Wufang. Yu Wufang could only accept the order. His entire body started to emit an awe-inspiring aura, after which this awe-inspiring aura started to spread towards Long Yu. Because of his pure world body, even if this aura was harmful to him, it wouldn't hurt him. After all, even the leader of the Bone Race, Yu Wufang, was only a 5-star emperor. He hadn't even reached the ruler's secret realm. Therefore, he generously let the other parties swear their loyalty. If there were any problems, he'd immediately kill all the Bone Race members. It wouldn't be a big loss to him. Soon, Yu Wufang's dense aura enveloped Long Yu. Then, Long Yu felt a soul connection with him. Through this Bone Race connection, Long Yu could clearly feel Yu Wufang's thoughts and even dig out his deep memories. He even knew where the endless grade martial skills of the Bone Race and the vestigial clans were hidden. This is a true oath of loyalty. In that case, there's no need to kill them all. Long Yu nodded in satisfaction. There were 300,000 Bone Race members here. If they were all distributed to the people in the void, each person would have several followers. After all, Long Yu only planned to distribute them to the fighters. As for the white feather monster race civilians, he didn't need them. The cultivation of these Bone Race members wasn't high. But if they were given enough resources, they could still rise. According to the current situation, as long as there were enough resources, the strength of the warriors in the void would increase by a large margin. After all, as long as a follower of the bone race and vestigial race reached the sovereign secret realm, they would have a decent fighting strength. Moreover, a follower could help them with many things, such as saving time for cultivation and increasing their cultivation realm faster. This kind of thing, no matter how he looked at it, was very cost-effective. The main thing was that Long Yu was now completely certain that the oath of allegiance of the bone race was not harmful to Long Yu, otherwise the world pure body would have reacted. This kind of oath of loyalty technique was probably used in ancient times by the commoners or warriors of the bone race to swear allegiance to the nobility and royalty of the bone race. But now there was no other way. They could only use it to swear allegiance to Long Yu and the others. If Long Yu made a move, not a single one of the 300,000 bone race members would survive. Right now, most of the bone race members were only in the transcendent secret realm. But as long as they had enough resources, it wouldn't be difficult for them to reach the king's secret realm or even the ruler's secret realm. Then, after Yu Wufang swore his loyalty to Long Yu learned where the bone race members had stored the unbounded martial skills. It was in their bodies. There was a special group of bone folk that wasn't particularly strong. However, they had hidden all of the unbounded martial skill jade slips inside their bodies. If Long Yu wanted to exterminate the bone folk, he definitely wouldn't have noticed them and destroyed the jade slips along with the rest of the unbounded martial skill. But now, Long Yu had actually ordered Yu Wufang to take out all these martial skill jade slips. It had to be said that the bone race members had been very useful to Long Yu. At the very least, the warmonger's celestial body and the unbounded grasp that he had been using for a long time had come from them. And now, he had even more martial skills. Among them, there were even supreme grade and supreme grade unbounded martial skills. The supreme grade and supreme grade unbounded martial skills were basically God Spirit martial skills. Long Yu's previous guess was correct. Among the bone race members' martial skills, there was 1 supreme grade unbounded martial skill and 3 supreme grade unbounded martial skills. From what Long Yu could tell, these 4 martial skills were at least on the same level as converging spirit light. God Spirit martial skills were supreme grade and supreme grade unbounded martial skills. Perhaps it could be said that supreme grade unbounded martial skills were godlike martial skills. Converging spirit light was not particularly difficult to cultivate, be it in terms of power or effectiveness. As for supreme grade unbounded martial skills, they were true God Spirit martial skills. The bone race actually had a martial skill jade slip that surpassed anything they had found in the eroding moon ancient region. From this, it could be seen that Long Yu's decision to subjugate these bone race members wasn't a bad one. In addition to that, the bone race also had dozens of high-grade unbounded martial skills on the same level as the warmonger's celestial body and the unbounded grasp. All of these martial skills belonged to the forces of the Void Galaxy. Some were demonic martial skills, some were human martial skills, and some were shared by both races. Simply put, almost all of the warriors of the Void Galaxy would have the opportunity to cultivate high-grade unbounded martial skills. There were also quite a few mid-grade unbounded martial skills. Although they weren't particularly strong, they were still very valuable to the average cultivator. Long Yu was confident that, with the help of the unbounded martial skill jade slips, as well as the followers of the bone folk and remnant tribes, the overall strength of the Starry River would increase by at least double in 3 months. This was already an extremely terrifying speed. For ordinary humans and demons, even a Dominator army would need at least 3 or 4 years to double their combat strength. Then, Long Yu spread the news that he could obtain the followers of the bone race and the vestigial race. The warriors of every galaxy rejoiced. Followers of different races, this kind of thing was extremely rare. Even in the human race and demon races' territories, in the past tens of thousands of years, they had never encountered such a thing. Long Yu was actually able to obtain so many followers of the bone race, it was really amazing. Since it was Long Yu who said it, they didn't doubt that there wouldn't be any danger. They trusted Long Yu. Ever since Long Yu had displayed his astonishing combat prowess in the previous battle, his status in the entire Void Galaxy had skyrocketed, to the point where he was even higher than the demigods. This was because they had clearly witnessed Long Yu's combat prowess. He hadn't reached the demigod level yet, but given his talent, it was only a matter of time before he became one. When Long Yu became a demigod, there wouldn't be many in the world who could rival Long Yu. After all, Long Yu was only a 7th phase sovereign, and yet he was already able to fight the demigods of the alien races head-on. How terrifying was that? Since they trusted Long Yu, they all expressed their willingness to accept the Bone Race followers. Long Yu released the 300,000 Bone Race members from his small world and had them line up in the Void Galaxy. These Bone Race members had family, friends, lovers, and relationship. Long Yu tried to keep them together so that they could be chosen by the warriors of the same Void Galaxy. The followers of the Bone Race could be used to improve their fighting prowess. Of course, they could also be used as servants, and their fighting prowess wouldn't be improved. But in any case, the existence of these followers would definitely strengthen the overall strength of the Void Galaxy. Moreover, Long Yu had added over 100 unbounded level jade slips to the Void Galaxy's library. As for the 3 Supreme Grade and 1 Supreme Grade unbounded level jade slips, Long Yu had kept them for himself. Long Yu didn't plan on cultivating these 4 techniques for now, but he definitely couldn't give them to ordinary cultivators. If they weren't important figures in the Void Galaxy or someone who had made a great contribution, Long Yu wouldn't pass them on. Long Yu would first cultivate the Death Hell of 4 Symbols, a forbidden skill of the ancient gods. If he had the time, he would take a look at the Supreme Grade Unbounded Level God Spirit technique. But right now, Long Yu didn't have the time. It took 7 days for Long Yu to sell all 300,000 Bone Race members. Basically, every warrior of the Void Galaxy was given 6 or 7 Bone Race followers, which they happily trained. After the Bone Race had sworn their oaths, the followers could communicate easily with others. They didn't need to use the Void Nether Dragon Blade like Long Yu did. After the matter was settled, Long Yu brought Yu Wufang with him and left the Void Galaxy, rushing towards the Soul Race's territory. "My lord, are you preparing to go to the Outsider's territory?" When Yu Wufang saw Long Yu's movements, he was a little surprised. "That's right. You don't need to worry about this. First, stay in my little world and raise your cultivation. At the very least, you have to reach the ruler's secret realm. Otherwise, there's no point in having you as my follower," Long Yu said indifferently. He provided Yu Wufang with a huge amount of heaven and earth spiritual qi, as well as many creation items. These were all used to increase his cultivation. Yu Wufang's cultivation talent was very high. As one of the few remaining leaders of the Bone Race, as well as having the bloodline of the Bone Race's royal bloodline, once he had enough cultivation resources, he could quickly raise his cultivation realm. Moreover, he didn't need to consolidate his cultivation for too long. Of course, after reaching the ruler's secret realm, no matter how many cultivation resources he had, his cultivation speed wouldn't be too fast. But that was after reaching the ruler's secret realm. At the very least, Yu Wufang had to reach the ruler's secret realm first. And he wasn't too far from that goal. Chapter 1609. There was a tradition in each of the 3 nearby star fields. Regardless of whether the races were allied or not, as long as they entered the territory of another race, it would be considered a great provocation, unless they had been invited in advance. This also showed how good the relationship between the human race and the demon race was. Basically, the human race and the demon race could be called the same race. They just maintained their own culture and history, and there was no way to completely unify them in terms of pills and martial technique. At this moment, Long Yu was flying quickly toward the edge of the Soul Race's territory. The Nether Void Dragon Blade continued to teleport through the void. Every time it teleported, it would bring Long Yu millions of miles away. However, this distance was still too small compared to the vastness of the void. If he wanted to officially enter the territory of the soul race, it would take him several more days. Long Yu felt that his speed was a little slow, so he decided to use some of the space-time teleportation formations along the way. These space-time teleportation formations were built by the soul race. They could allow any existence to teleport over long distances. However, for Long Yu, if he wanted to use these formations, he would have to be prepared for 2 fierce battles every time he used them. This was because these space-time teleportation formations would definitely be guarded by many powerful soul race members. The closer the space-time teleportation formations were, the stronger the guards would be. But there shouldn't be any demigod soul race members in a place like this. Long Yu thought to himself as the corners of his mouth curled up. With his current strength, as long as no demigod realm experts appeared, nothing would be a problem. Robbing 1 or 2 space-time teleportation arrays would not be a big deal. However, if he did that, it would alarm the soul race. Long Yu had to ensure that the other party would not spread the news. In this way, the void domain created by the Dragon Skeleton Tower was extremely important. Just like before, Long Yu couldn't let a single soul go. Very quickly, Long Yu found a space-time teleportation array. This was the Soul Clan's space-time teleportation array at the outermost periphery. If he used this space-time teleportation array, Long Yu should be able to save at least 3 to 4 days of time and enter the Soul Clan's territory. This was not bad for him. Moreover, he had come to kill the soul race. It didn't matter if he started killing now or after entering the soul race's territory. After turning into nothingness, Long Yu gradually approached the space-time teleportation formation. What was more troublesome was that there were many wandering soul race patrols nearby. Although he couldn't see them with the naked eye, Long Yu could easily sense their existence. If he directly attacked the space-time teleportation formation, the soul race patrols outside would survive. This was not a situation Long Yu wanted to see. In his illusory state, he approached the soul race patrollers one after another. These soul race patrollers were all 3rd and 4th phase dominators. In terms of cultivation, they were already very strong. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been arranged to patrol the outermost space-time transfer array. However, it was extremely easy for Long Yu to kill these fellows. He could even kill them all without making a sound. Long Yu didn't use the 9 underworld sphere or the dark flame ghostly chains. Instead, he used the boundless grasp. The dark demon divine runes that specifically targeted spiritual energy could instantly kill any soul race cultivator in the ruler's mystic realm. After almost an incense stick's time, Long Yu killed all the soul race patrols outside. However, at this time, the soul race guarding the space-time teleportation formation also noticed that something was wrong. Combat teams swarmed out of the space-time teleportation formation. Long Yu didn't hesitate. He immediately activated the Dragon Skeleton Tower's void domain and enveloped the entire space-time teleportation formation. This space-time teleportation formation was relatively important to the soul race. However, they had only arranged for 1,000 soul race experts to guard it. The overall combat strength of the guards here was much weaker than the soul race's sovereign army. They posed no threat to Long Yu. Moreover, the space-time teleportation formation was relatively small. The void domain could completely envelop it, allowing Long Yu to slowly use his method. Within the void domain, any spatial divine runes would be sealed. The space-time teleportation formation was no exception. As long as the void domain wasn't destroyed, the space-time teleportation formation wouldn't be able to be activated. After everything was set up, Long Yu started using all kinds of methods to kill the 1,000 soul race sovereign realm experts. First, he used the dark flame ghostly chains. With a sweep, he killed 800 soul race experts. After all, the pressure on Long Yu was quite great. It was better to use the dark flame ghostly chains to kill a portion of them first. After that, he used other methods, such as the 9 underworld sphere, to devour the remaining soul race experts and turn them into nutrients for his 8th ability. To Long Yu, who had faced 3 soul race sovereign armies head-on, he was practically invincible as long as a demigod soul race expert didn't appear. At the very least, he was invincible for a short period of time, as long as the barrier of his pure physique wasn't destroyed by the other party. However, given his current strength, even if an army of sovereigns attacked him at the same time, it would take them some time to break through his worldly purity body's protective barrier. These few hundred soul sovereigns were no match for him at all. In less than 15 minutes, Long Yu killed all the soul race sovereigns near the spacetime teleportation formation. Not a single one was left alive. They were either completely annihilated by the dark flame ghostly chains or devoured by the 9 underworld sphere. Even their small worlds weren't left. Long Yu didn't mind. These soul race sovereigns weren't powerful existences. Their innate abilities didn't contain any divine character essence or absolute beginning essence, so there was no need to waste time searching for their small worlds. Right now, when the other party used their innate sacred art, if there was any divine rune essence or the power of the absolute beginning essence, Long Yu would be able to sense it. Therefore, he could definitely leave the stronger soul race behind and kill or devour the rest. Right now, Long Yu was still missing 3 shadow essences. It wasn't going to be that easy to get his hands on. After snatching the space-time transmission array, Long Yu removed the absolute space domain, and then had the Void Spirit Dragon Blade activate the space-time transmission array. He was very clear that if he were to teleport over through the space-time transmission array, it was very likely that he would encounter the main force of the soul race, but he was not afraid. He couldn't just run into a soul race sovereign, could he? Moreover, even if it was a soul race sovereign, Long Yu might still be able to escape. Although he couldn't kill the soul race sovereign, it would be extremely difficult for them to kill Long Yu. As the power of spacetime flickered, Long Yu's figure was sucked into the spacetime teleportation formation. A moment later, he appeared extremely far away. This place wasn't far from the soul race's territory. In fact, it was already at the edge of the soul race's territory. It just so happened to be the soul race's last line of defense in this direction. Long Yu didn't wait for his figure to appear. He immediately turned into nothingness and didn't let any soul race sovereign sense his presence. However, the commotion caused by the spacetime teleportation formation still made the soul race sovereigns stationed here feel that something was wrong. They knew that something was coming, but they didn't see anything. This surprised them. Then, someone quickly went to check on the previous teleportation formation. However, they discovered that the area around the formation was completely empty. The 1,000 soul race sovereigns that should have been stationed here had completely disappeared. All that remained was the intense aura of battle. Someone had invaded. This news quickly spread to the soul race's territory. However, they didn't pay much attention to it. It wasn't like something like this hadn't happened before. There was no need to make a fuss about it. At the very least, there was no need to send a demigod to take action. From the way they saw it, if someone could easily kill 1,000 soul sovereigns without making any noise, then it must be an unknown enemy army that had arrived. However, they didn't sense anything. This surprised them. They connected this to the divine spirit boundary that they discovered recently. Could it be that the thing inside had launched a counterattack? However, they had clearly sent demigods and 3 sovereign armies to attack. There were also the Silverstone race and the Divine Water race. Logically speaking, there should be no news at all, right? No matter what, the war armies near the Soul race's territory were all mobilized. They began to search for the foreign army that had seized the spacetime teleportation formation. However, they didn't know that it wasn't a single army that had invaded their territory. It was just one person. This was all because none of Long Yu's battle outside the divine spirit boundary had reached the ears of the soul race. They had no idea what kind of existence was on the other side of the divine spirit boundary. When the soul race began to mobilize, Long Yu had already completely concealed himself and flew toward the interior of the soul race's territory. Even the spiritual senses of a demigod could not reach millions of kilometers away. Therefore, it was still very easy for Long Yu to avoid the demigods of the soul race by relying on the void spirit dragon dagger. He knew very well that there would definitely be powerful demigods stationed at the borders of the soul race's territory. He wasn't a match for them head-on, and it wasn't appropriate for him to escape. Of course, he could only choose to go around. He found a patrol squad of the soul race and killed all the other soul race members, leaving only one soul sovereign alive. Then, through the void nether dragon blade, he sent out a telepathic thought and interrogated the demigod on the borders of the soul race's territory. Faced with Long Yu's interrogation, these soul race members would rather die than surrender. However, after Long Yu cleaned up the 7th Patrol Squad, a spineless person finally told Long Yu the relevant information, allowing Long Yu to figure out the distribution of the demigods nearby. Chapter 1610. Of course, Long Yu would not believe the first coward. He continued searching for the patrol squads of the soul race in the nearby area. Finally, when he cleared the 15th Patrol Squad, he encountered another coward who told him the distribution of the demigods in the nearby area under his interrogation. What puzzled Long Yu was that this guy's information was completely different from the previous guy's. Even the information about the number of demigods was different. This made Long Yu realize that these guys were not really cowards. They just wanted to deceive Long Yu and make Long Yu run into the demigods. Thankfully, he was smart enough to ask more questions. If he wanted to confirm it, he would have to interrogate some more soul race members. Long Yu was not in a hurry. After all, it would be very troublesome if he accidentally broke into the territory of the demigods. Therefore, he kept searching for the patrol squads at the edge of the soul race's territory and asked for information. Very soon, he realized that it was useless. Faced with the interrogation of an alien race like him, even if some soul race members revealed some information, the information revealed by each soul race member was different. They were obviously fooling him, and it was impossible for him to confirm it at all. In 3 days, he obtained 7 or 8 pieces of information, but all of them were different. These soul race members are really considerate of their race. Long Yu had to admit that their spirit really moved him. However, it was useless to move Long Yu. He still had to kill these soul race members. For the soul race, the human race, and the demon race, the two sides were enemies. After so many years, the number of people who had died in each other's hands was definitely in the billions. Such a blood feud was absolutely impossible to reconcile. Apart from the two sides continuing the war, there was another outcome, which was that one side would be completely destroyed by the other. Of course, the situation in the nearby space zone was still rather complicated. Even if one of the races was about to be destroyed, it was very likely that it would cause quite a big storm. Speaking of which, according to the records of the Demigod College, it has been more than 1,000 years since a race was destroyed in this area. Now that the combined strength of the human race and the demon race has increased a lot, I wonder if they will take action, Long Yu thought to himself. He decided not to inquire any further because it would be useless to do so in such a situation. No soul race clansman would tell him the truth. Only now did he understand why there was basically no communication between different races. Even if there was communication, the other party wouldn't tell you the truth. What was there to talk about? If he met them, he could only kill them. It was that simple. As for cooperation, it was very difficult to cooperate with a race like the soul race. Without a common enemy, the human race, the Yao race, and the soul race had nothing in common. There was no point in cooperating. With no other choice, Long Yu could only rely on his luck. Fortunately, although the soul race did not reveal any key information to him, he still managed to figure out where the borders of the soul race's territory were. Even if the guy was lying, he would have told Long Yu some wrong information about the demigod's location based on the border. Therefore, Long Yu finally understood the borders of the soul race's territory. As long as he crossed the border, he would be able to bypass the area guarded by the demigod experts and enter the soul race's territory safely. Speaking of which, I haven't even had a good time in the human race's territory or the demon race's territory. I didn't expect to come to the soul race's territory first. Long Yu found it funny. Next, he would search for the shadow essence in the soul race's territory, so he would definitely have to walk around. By then, he would probably be more familiar with the situation in the soul race's territory than the human race's and the demon race's territories. Although he was a member of the human race, he basically didn't stay in the human race's territory for long. Even in the demon race's territory, he only stayed a little longer in the outer galaxies and the battlefield of the alien races. He wasn't particularly familiar with the environment in the territory. With the void traversal of the Void Dragon Blade, Long Yu flew millions of kilometers in one go. It could be said that he had crossed the galaxy. Although it was fast, there were still some risks. If he happened to teleport to the demigod of the soul race, it would be a tragedy. Therefore, after every teleportation, Long Yu would subconsciously turn into nothingness and hide first. He would observe the surroundings clearly before continuing the operation. When he moved near the border of the soul race's territory, Long Yu blindly followed the demigods, but the situation was much better after he entered the soul race's territory. That was because the soul race's territory was extremely vast, and there were only about 20 demigods in the entire soul race's territory. At least half of them were guarding the border, and the other half were scattered in the vast universe. Obviously, it was not so easy for Long Yu to run into them. 2 days later, Long Yu was sure that he had teleported all the way to the interior of the soul race's territory because he could see the stars getting closer and closer to him. The colors of the stars were relatively dim, very different from the situation in the human race and demon race's territory. The soul race was a special alien race that originated from this region and gradually developed. The cultivators of the soul race did not have a physical body. Every single one of them was a pure spiritual life form, and the types of divine symbols they could use were relatively few. In this region, there were basically sources of divine symbols condensed from the divine symbols of life or shadow attribute. According to the theories of the human race and the demon race, the sources of divine symbols were the failed products of the ancient gods' modification of the primeval power. Therefore, it could be inferred that in the soul race's territory, there should have been a powerful spirit-type god who modified the primeval power here, which was why there were so many sources of divine symbols of the spiritual attribute. Other than that, there were also the divine symbols of the shadow attribute, which were quite common in the soul race's territory. The divine symbols of the shadow attribute were one of the divine symbols that the soul race cultivators could rarely use apart from the divine symbols of the spirit attribute. Long Yu crossed the void and kept moving through the soul race's territory. He saw one cultivation planet after another, revolving around the sources of divine symbols. There were many soul race tribes on these cultivation planets, but Long Yu did not attack them. This was because these fellows were far too weak. If Long Yu attacked, he could likely shatter an entire planet. If the Dark Flame Ghost attacked, he could easily kill off all the soul race beings on the planet. But this was meaningless because his goal was to find shadow essence or would attribute essence of the primeval power. Thus, there was no need for him to go to ordinary cultivation planets because it was impossible for such treasures to exist. As for the larger cultivation planets, there was no need for him to go either because there was a high chance that there would be demigods of the soul race there. His goal was the origin of divine runes. Whether it was shadow essence or would attribute essence of the primeval power, they were all born from the source of divine symbols. Thus, the area around the source of divine symbols was the most likely place for Long Yu to obtain what he wanted. The guards around the source of divine symbols were usually very strict. For Long Yu, this was the best place to plunder and devour. If the Spiritas' powerhouses within the soul race's territory were gathered somewhere, then the majority of them would be near the source of divine symbols. They would either be comprehending the power of the source of divine symbols, or they would be sent to guard the source of divine symbols. Of course, these guards were basically there to prevent the Spiritas from entering. For instance, the source of divine runes in the monster race territory. Because the source of divine runes had a limited amount of strength, only those that had the qualifications to go to the source of divine runes could comprehend them. This required some relatively strong guards to guard the source of divine runes, so that unrelated people couldn't enter. The Spiritas were also in the same situation. But today, they had welcomed a foreign powerhouse like Long Yu. This was something they had never imagined would happen. Soon, Long Yu found his first target. This was a relatively dim source of divine runes. There were 4 cultivation planets orbiting around it. It seemed like a decent source of divine runes. The Spiritas' powerhouses guarding it all had extraordinary auras. This was what Long Yu wanted to do. He quietly waited for 3 days. In these 3 days, he thoroughly understood the surrounding situation as well as the movements of the Spiritas. It just so happened that there was a group of Spiritas geniuses that had been chosen to come to this source of divine symbols to cultivate and comprehend the spirit attribute divine symbols. Although this was only the power of source divine symbols, to an ordinary cultivator, source divine symbols were already quite good. If one wanted to comprehend the power of the 5 elements, higher-level revelation divine symbols, or even eternal divine symbols, it would be impossible to do so in such a place. Long Yu had obtained 3 source divine symbols from the eroding moon ancient region with great difficulty. He had given 1 to the humans, 1 to the monster race, and 1 to the Star River race. In the entire Spiritas territory, it was hard to say whether or not there were any source of revelation divine symbols. And even if there were, there would definitely be divine souls guarding them. It was impossible for Long Yu to have any ideas about such a thing. After he investigated the surrounding situation, he began to act. After the younger generation of Spiritas geniuses entered, there were still many family elders and bodyguards waiting outside. These were all Long Yu's targets. He wanted to see if there was any shadow essence among them. The former leader of the Demigod Academy, Frost, had obtained a lot of ice essence from the ice god race's territory. Now, Long Yu had come to the Spiritas territory and was prepared to seize the shadow essence. 1,200 soul race guards. Among them, 100 are at least 5th phase great dominators. They are all captain-level existences. Right now, there are also the elders and bodyguards of the soul race clansmen escorting them. In total, there are 2,000 soul race clansmen gathered in this small area. After Long Yu had investigated and made his preparations, he prepared to take action. Ancient Dragon Bone Tower, attack. Absolute Space Domain, open. Another unstoppable slaughter was about to begin. As soon as Long Yu appeared, he discovered that a 6th phase Sovereign Spiritas was using an innate divine ability. It seemed to be an existence that had fused with the essence of divine symbols. Chapter 16:11. The divine rune essence that Long Yu needed was either shadow essence or absolute beginning essence. If it was only life essence, then it wouldn't be of much use to him. The energy that erupted from that special Spiritas' 6th phase great ruler was the power of shadow essence. If this Spiritas was a 7th phase great ruler, then perhaps it would pose a slight threat to Long Yu. But now, in front of Long Yu, it didn't have the slightest ability to resist at all. The dark flame ghost chain instantly erupted. Black flames blazed around it as it rapidly extended through the void. It was like a long snake, wriggling and swallowing. All the Spiritas powerhouses in its path were incinerated, not even leaving a trace of their soul. It was just that under Long Yu's deliberate control, the sixth-phase Spirita's great ruler with the power of shadow essence was spared. Of course, this was only temporary. After Long Yu killed off the other Spiritas, he used the boundless grasp to kill the sixth-phase Spirita's great ruler. Then, he took the sixth-phase Spirita's great ruler's small world and left the divine rune source. Within the divine rune source, there were still many Spiritas juniors cultivating and comprehending. They had no idea that the Spiritas elders protecting them had all been killed. Moreover, Long Yu didn't let a single Spiritas escape. In a short period of time, he had completely annihilated this large group of Spiritas. This could be said to be extremely efficient. After killing off this large group of Spiritas, Long Yu left this place, not leaving behind a single trace of his aura. Even if a demigod powerhouse ran over afterwards, they wouldn't be able to find any information about Long Yu. Long Yu had the Dragon Blood Sacred Diagram, a combat weapon, which was a very useful tool for cleaning up traces. Although its grade was slightly low, the Dragon Blood Sacred Wind Diagram was still very convenient to use. It could completely remove any traces of existence, and then make it impossible for the opponent to deduce any information about him. It was no wonder that even the Jiryo Dragon Emperor kept this battle weapon. After all, it was very useful in many situations. After Long Yu left the source of divine runes, he continued to fly. In 2 days, he crossed a distance of 1,000,000,000,000 miles and arrived in a quiet and uninhabited void. In this void there was no one within 1,000,000,000,000 miles. Even if Long Yu wanted to use the void to pass through this uninhabited region, he would need 2 days to do so. Now that he was here, he could peacefully search the small world of the sixth-phase soul race ruler. However, searching for the essence of the divine characters in the opponent's pocket world was much faster. After all he needed to do was find the 7 innate magic fruits in the opponent's pocket world. Long Yu quickly entered the opponent's pocket world. He immediately felt a strange, shadow-type divine character surging toward him and surrounding him. However, these darkness-attributed divine characters were ownerless right now, so they posed no threat to Long Yu. He directly passed through these darkness-attributed divine characters and quickly found the first connate mystique fruit. 3 days later, Long Yu appeared near another source of divine runes. Perhaps because of his last mission, he discovered that this source of divine runes was much more heavily guarded than before. Moreover, there were many hidden sentries. If Long Yu tried to attack like last time, he would definitely be discovered by the opponent and his whereabouts would be exposed. This arrangement is a bit intricate. Long Yu's thoughts stirred. This source of divine runes was far too difficult to attack. If Long Yu wanted to forcefully seize this source of divine runes, it was likely that his whereabouts would be exposed. Of course, this was referring to Long Yu of the past. He had found a shadow essence from the sixth-phase soul race ruler's body. Then, he had fused this shadow essence into the 9 Nether Hunters' innate magic fruit, causing the 9 Nether Hunters' innate magic fruit to have a special effect. That was, as long as the 9 Nether Hunter killed an opponent, it could transform the opponent's residual strength into another 9 Nether Hunter. For Long Yu's current situation, this was a completely divine skill. If the 9 Nether Hunter dealt with everything, then Long Yu wouldn't even need to show himself to kill all the Spiritas present. Even if the 9 Nether Hunter failed, Long Yu wouldn't be in danger of being exposed. In the Spiritas' territory, with this method, it could be said that he was unstoppable. Long Yu transformed into nothingness and hid in the void. Then, after investigating the situation, he condensed 10 9 Nether Hunters at once. These 10 9 Nether Hunters wielded twin sabers. They were like the shadows of a death god as they rapidly rushed towards the nearby Spiritas. Moreover, they used their heart saber to shatter the opponent's mind and soul. In nearly an instant, the 10 Spiritas were completely killed off. Long Yu hadn't used the 9 Nether Hunter's innate magic fruit recently because it wasn't very useful. It was better to condense the demon dust avatar. However, after merging with the shadow essence, the 9 Nether Hunter's innate magic fruit was extremely suitable for combat under certain circumstances. For example, right now it wasn't suitable for Long Yu to appear. So, using the 9 Nether Hunter could completely solve the situation he was currently facing. In just a breath's time, the 10 9 Nether Hunters had turned into 29 Nether Hunters. Then, these 29 Nether Hunters pounced towards the other Spiritas, sovereign mystic realm experts at lightning speed. Right now, Long Yu's cultivation was already at the 7th phase sovereign realm. He was already a peak existence below the demigod realm. Originally, the 9 Nether Hunters that he summoned could easily kill most existences below the demigod realm. Now that the shadow essence had been merged with the 9 Nether Hunters, not only did they have the ability to invade and divide, but the power of the twin sabers in their hands was even more tyrannical. Basically, as long as one wasn't at the peak of the 7th phase sovereign realm, there was no way for them to survive the 9 Nether Hunters' heart saber. The only exception was if the Spiritas sovereigns were powerful enough to dodge the first attack. However, they wouldn't be able to dodge the second attack. Long Yu himself didn't even need to do anything. In just 4 or 5 breaths' time, the entire battlefield was filled with 9 Nether Hunters. There were at least 50 of them. This meant that 40 Spiritas sovereigns had been killed by the 9 Nether Hunters and turned into 9 Nether Hunters instead. The Shadow Essence's power continued to condense into 9 Nether Hunters. 50, 60, 70. Although 9 Nether Hunters were constantly being killed by the Spiritas experts, the number of 9 Nether Hunters on the battlefield was still increasing. Even the stronger Spiritas were being attacked by 3 or 4 9 Nether Hunters. They were easily killed and turned into a new 9 Nether Hunter. The entire sky was filled with the figures of the 9 Nether Hunters. This shocked the Soul Race cultivators. They had never seen a foreign race like the 9 Nether Hunter. Immediately, some of the Soul Race cultivators wanted to escape and report this news to the higher-ups of the Soul Race. Long Yu didn't stop them. In any case, the 9 Nether Hunters weren't his real body. Even if they were destroyed, it wouldn't be a problem. It was just that one of his innate abilities would be studied by the other party. It was impossible for them to capture the 9 Nether Hunters alive. This was because the 9 Nether Hunters didn't have any life. Even if they fell into the enemy's hands, they would immediately self-destruct. It was impossible to truly study the characteristics of the 9 Nether Hunters. When Long Yu first condensed the 9 Nether Hunters, he used the Dragon Blood Sacred Wind diagram to erase the connection between him and the 9 Nether Hunters. Even if the other party tried to deduce something based on the 9 Nether Hunters, they wouldn't be able to deduce anything about Long Yu. Long Yu even wanted to use this ability to massacre the cultivation planets of the Spiritas and deal a heavy blow to them. However, this idea wasn't realistic. After all, each 9 Nether Hunter wouldn't exist for more than 2 hours. Moreover, the strength of the opponents killed by the 9 Nether Hunters had nothing to do with Long Yu. Instead, it was related to the strength of the person killed. If the 9 Nether Hunter killed a 5th phase Great Sovereign of the Spiritas, then the new 9 Nether Hunter that was born would have the combat power of a 5th phase Great Sovereign. If it killed an Emperor Path Secret Realm Spiritas, then the new 9 Nether Hunter that was born would only have the combat power of an Emperor Path Secret Realm. Long Yu wanted to massacre some of the Spiritas' cultivation planet. Unfortunately, even he couldn't rely on the 9 Nether Hunters' splitting characteristic to slaughter all the Spiritas on an entire cultivation planet within 2 hours. Unless the 9 Nether Hunter that Long Yu condensed could exist for a longer period of time. In that case, it was still possible to massacre the entire cultivation planet. If the 9 Nether Hunter becomes a divinized ability, will it have such power? Long Yu thought to himself. Unfortunately, he didn't know how to turn a Sciention mystic ability into a deified mystic ability. Other than the eroding moon ancient region, he hadn't found any other way to achieve this. Although he couldn't massacre the cultivation planets for now, there were only 1,000 Spiritas in front of Long Yu. Just the 9 Nether Hunter alone was enough to deal with them. On the battlefield, the 9 Nether Hunter danced like a group of demons. The 2 blades pierced through the void, killing the Spiritas. Then, a new 9 Nether Hunter would appear from the spiritual and soul remains of the Spiritas. Such a hellish scene scared the remaining half of the soul race powerhouses out of their wits. The 9 Nether Hunter wasn't invincible, but their numbers kept increasing, and there was no end to them. As long as the Spiritas died, they would immediately become hunters of the netherworld. Such a situation caused the Spiritas present to be on the verge of collapse. During this process, Long Yu didn't sense any special innate ability of the Spiritas. In other words, during this operation, Long Yu didn't obtain any information about the essence of divine runes. He couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. Looks like I have to look for my next target. Long Yu's eyes flashed with radiance as a new plan formed in his mind. Chapter 1612. Long Yu's actions in the Soul Race's territory must have alarmed the upper echelons of the Soul Race. Just like when he was on a training mission in the Demigod Academy, once the human race or the demon race discovered traces of other races in their territory, they would definitely send experts to hunt them down. They wouldn't give the other races any chance to struggle at death's door. They wouldn't even let go of traces of those seemingly harmless foreign races, not to mention that Long Yu had already caused severe damage to the Soul Race. In total, more than 3,000 Soul Race sovereigns had died in his hands. If the Soul Race didn't deal with such a matter seriously, then this race would have disappeared from this world long ago. It would have been impossible for them to maintain their development until now. Therefore, next, Long Yu would definitely face some genius experts of the Soul Race. Perhaps there was also an organization similar to the Demigod Academy in the Soul Race, or an existence similar to the Human Guard Corps. These organizations basically existed to fight against the other races. No matter how strong the invading foreign races were, they would eventually be killed by these organizations. Therefore, Long Yu's current situation was definitely very dangerous. But he wasn't worried about his own safety, because no matter which time it was, he hadn't revealed any clues about himself. Moreover, he didn't intend to use his main body for the next operation. After all, now that he had a great killing weapon like the 9 Nether Hunters, he couldn't risk revealing himself. 2 incidents had happened near the Divine Rune origin in a row, and the entire Soul Race's territory had been mobilized. If Long Yu continued to act, he would immediately be attacked by many experts who were already prepared. But Long Yu's plan would definitely leave the entire Soul Race scratching their heads. Because before the next operation, he planned to take a stroll around other places. For example, he would casually scatter some 9 Nether Hunters on some nearby cultivation planet. For some ordinary cultivation planets, the hunters of the 9 Nether that Long Yu had condensed out were akin to the god of death. No cultivator could fight against them. Additionally, the spirit soul cultivators killed by the hunters of the 9 Nether would be transformed into hunters of the 9 Nether. Long Yu was traveling among some training planets nearby. In the meantime, he saw a lot of powerful patrolling Soul Race squads, but none of them found any trace of him. After all, his technique of turning into nothingness was not a joke. Unless a demigod arrived, his traces would never be exposed. Then, every time he passed by a cultivation planet, he would drop 5 9 Nether Hunters and let them wreak havoc on the cultivation planet. If they didn't handle it well, these 5 Netherworld Hunters could sweep through the entire cultivation planet and kill the hundreds of millions of Soul Race people on the planet. Of course, most of them were Soul Race civilians who didn't have much combat power. But Long Yu believed that the Soul Race would not sit idly by. His purpose in doing this was to attract the attention of the Soul Race experts patrolling nearby to these cultivation planets, so as to minimize the resistance brought by his actions. Moreover, there was a great benefit to this. For Long Yu, his goal was to find the divine text essence or the absolute beginning essence. If he spread his net like this, he would be able to see the situation that the 9 nether hunters encountered. Once the divine text essence or the absolute beginning essence appeared nearby, he would be able to detect it immediately. Then, he would rush to the destination, kill the other party, and seize the divine text essence or the absolute beginning essence in the other party's small world. Just like this, Long Yu scattered the 9 nether hunters in the nearby soul race territory. This caused the people in the soul race's territory to be unable to make a living. Even though the cultivators of the soul race were spiritual life forms without a physical body, at this moment, an extremely dense aura of death could be felt everywhere in this star field. Some of the cultivation planets had not been able to deal with the 9 nether hunters properly, resulting in extremely heavy casualties. There was even a large number of 9 nether hunters gathered in most areas of a cultivation planet, and they continued to spread out to the periphery. Under such circumstances, there was only one way for the soul race to deal with it, and that was to let the stronger soul race cultivation teams come over and evacuate the other soul race members that were still alive. Then, they would set up a formation and eliminate the 9 nether hunters in one go. To be honest, Long Yu didn't know that the 9 nether hunters would be so strong after fusing with the shadow essence. Otherwise, he would have fused with the 9 nether hunters a long time ago. But it wasn't too late now. After all, even if the 9 nether hunters had fused with the shadow essence, he didn't have a good chance to use them. After 3 days, Long Yu had scattered the 9 nether hunters to dozens of nearby cultivation planets, causing a huge uproar in the soul race's territory. There were even 2 demigods of the soul race who came to the nearby sea of stars. Long Yu didn't encounter them himself, but the 9 nether hunters encountered the 2 demigod experts of the soul race and were directly blown to pieces without the slightest chance to resist. It was also when the 2 demigod experts of the soul race appeared that Long Yu finally discovered the second expert of the soul race who had fused with the divine text's essence. He was not near the 2 demigods of the soul race, which made Long Yu think of something. At this time, Long Yu was like a locust, spreading the 9 nether hunters to the nearby space of billions of kilometers. They served as his eyes and ears, allowing him to grasp the movements in the nearby space at any time. For the soul race, this was already an extremely serious alien invasion. Even in the past 100 years, something like this had never happened. This made the upper echelons of the soul race furious, and they swore to eliminate the culprit of this incident. Unfortunately, these soul race cultivators, even the 2 demigods, still didn't know who the culprit was. Countless 9 nether hunters were wreaking havoc in the void. When they encountered some weaker soul race members, they would directly kill them, and then split into more 9 nether hunters. This situation made the soul race feel despair, and the soul race suffered extremely heavy losses. Before they knew it, Long Yu appeared near the great ruler of the soul race who had fused with the divine text's essence. After making sure that there was no danger in the surroundings, he personally attacked and killed it with the void grasp. This 7th phase great ruler of the soul race was very strong, and he reacted immediately, launching an invisible mental attack at Long Yu. Unfortunately, Long Yu's pure body made the other party's attack useless. Then, his mind and soul were completely destroyed by Long Yu's dark demon divine text, leaving only a small world. Long Yu took away the small world, and then used the dragon blood sacred wind diagram to completely cover up the traces of his appearance. This series of actions made Long Yu feel a sense of familiarity. This feeling came from a long, long time ago, when the Jiyo Dragon Emperor roamed the territories of the outer god race alone and plundered the creatures of the outer god race. At that time, the Jiyo Dragon Emperor was already in existence in the demigod realm. One could imagine how terrifying the storm of slaughter he set off in the territories of the outer god race was. To the outer god race, the Geo Dragon Emperor could be said to be a nightmare. And now, Long Yu's actions in the Soul Race's territories would definitely leave a heavy mark in the history of the Soul Race. At least more than 50 cultivation planets were destroyed by the 9 Nether Hunters in this storm. The number of dead and injured Soul Race cultivators definitely exceeded billions. At this time, Long Yu also discovered that his innate mystiques were much stronger and more special than others. Even if other people's innate mystiques were fused with the primordium essence, they wouldn't have such terrifying power. They could even bring a huge disaster to the entire Soul Race. This included the Book of Shadows, the Path of the 9 Nether, and most importantly, the Ball of the 9 Nether. The innate mystique fruits in Long Yu's body seemed to be different from others. They were a level higher than other people's innate mystique. As for the innate mystique fruits, it was said that this world gave every cultivator a gift. Everyone had 7 mystique seeds, which could bear 7 innate mystique. No matter how one looked at it, Long Yu seemed to be very abnormal. Not only did he have the 8th mystique, but his 3 high-level mystiques, namely the 9 Nether Hunters, the Book of Shadows, and the Path of the 9 Nether, were too powerful. This made Long Yu wonder if it was because he wasn't born and raised in this world. After all, he had transmigrated from another world, so it was normal for him to have some special traits. He shook his head. Now was not the time to think about this. Even if he kept thinking, he wouldn't be able to get the answer now. At least, he had to wait until he reached the demigod level and touched the level of gods. Only then would he be able to get some answers about his transmigration and the innate mystique fruit. After killing the Soul Race member, Long Yu took away its small world and found a relatively safe place to search. Very soon, he found a life essence. This thing was useless to Long Yu, but if it was sent back to the Void Galaxy, it could greatly increase the strength of some cultivators who had comprehended the divine language of life. However, when Long Yu came out of the small world, he suddenly realized that his whereabouts seemed to have been exposed. From all directions, some powerful troops of the Soul Race surrounded him. Even the 2 demigods of the Soul Race were quickly teleporting in his direction. For now, the 2 demigods of the Soul Race were still relatively far away, but with the speed of demigods, they would soon catch up to Long Yu. *T. Without any hesitation, Long Yu cleaned up all traces in the field and started teleporting in a certain direction as fast as he could. Faced with demigods, there was only one way, and that was to run. If he was in the demigod level, there would be no need for him to run. He could easily kill the 2 demigods, but unfortunately, Long Yu was still a short distance away from the demigod level. Chapter 1613. Long Yu did not know when he had been exposed, but it must have been one of the 2 demigods who had the means to track him. Whether it was through deduction, perception, or other weird methods, Long Yu was in danger. He had no choice but to leave the area as quickly as possible. Little Sue, as fast as you can, burst out. Long Yu commanded the Nether Dragon Dagger, and then flew across the void at a speed of millions of kilometers. However, even at such a speed, it seemed that he could not get rid of the 2 demigods of the Soul Race. The 2 demigods were still chasing after him as if they could pinpoint his location. The fact that the Soul Race could survive in this space zone for such a long time proved that they were not easy to bully. How could the demigods not notice what Long Yu had done in the territory of the Soul Race? However, at this moment, the connection between Long Yu and the Void Ghost Dragon Dagger became even more compatible. After such a long time, this special absolute beginning treasure finally reached the 3rd level of awakening. Awakening the first 2 levels of the Netherworld Dragon Blade had already increased its power by quite a bit. Now that it had awakened to the 3rd level, the water elemental energy contained within the Netherworld Dragon Blade had increased by more than 3 times. The awakening skill this time was also a passive one. The effect was that the power of the water was 3 times more powerful. As a result, Both void traversal and void burial were 3 times more powerful than before. In terms of void burial, the power was 3 times more powerful. As for void traversal, it was very useful for long-use current situation. The distance of one teleportation was also 3 times more powerful, reaching more than 10 million kilometers. In the void, 10 million kilometers was not a big deal. However, to be able to teleport more than 10 million kilometers in one breath was rather terrifying. Furthermore, when Long Yu awakened the Void Ghost Dragon Dagger to the 3rd level, he immediately got rid of the 2 demigods of the soul race. Little Sue, well done. Long Yu laughed and moved forward quickly in the void. In such a way, not only would he avoid the risk of being hunted by the demigods of the soul race, but he would also be able to stir trouble in the territory of the soul race and loot more things. However, at this moment, the 9 nether hunters that Long Yu had left behind in the void had all been eliminated. As a result, he had no idea what the situation in the void was like. He couldn't even tell if the 2 demigods were still chasing after him. This was not a good sign. This meant that he did not even know of the danger, and it was very likely that he would end up in tragedy if he was not careful. He constantly condensed some 9 nether hunters and let them scatter along the way. These 9 nether hunters did not receive the order to kill the soul race. Instead, they only served as scouts. This way, Long Yu would be able to know the general situation of the void he passed through after a period of time. Of course, this had its drawbacks. As long as the other party followed the 9 nether hunters, they would be able to find Long Yu's current location. But there was nothing he could do. After scattering enough 9 nether hunters along the way, Long Yu suddenly stopped this action. Then, he changed his direction and teleported in another direction. In such a way, the possibility that the other party could track him would be greatly reduced. 3 days later, Long Yu had arrived at a completely different galaxy. Even this galaxy was no longer under the jurisdiction of the 2 demigods of the soul race. However, he discovered that when he came to this galaxy, all the soul race cultivators in this galaxy were in an extremely nervous state. Long Yu immediately realized that the matter regarding the 9 nether hunters had spread throughout the entire territory of the soul race. Such a major event had basically destroyed dozens of cultivation planet. It was enough to attract the attention of the entire territory of the soul race. Furthermore, Long Yu was certain that many demigods in the territory of the soul race were searching for his traces. It was a pity that they could not find him for the time being. This is rather troublesome. Long Yu narrowed his eyes. If he took action now, it was possible that he would fall into the enemy's trap, and he would not be able to escape unscathed. If there were demigods lying in ambush in this galaxy, the situation would be very bad. For safety reasons, he did not take action immediately. Instead, he continued to teleport further away. At such a moment, he did not even dare to summon the 9 nether ball. Although it would slow down his consolidation of his level, it could not be helped. His life was the most important thing. However, as long as he was messing around in this territory of the soul race would not have the intention to attack the galaxy anymore. As for the Silverstone race and the Divine Water race, after losing a demigod and not receiving any specific information about the galaxy, they probably would not launch another operation easily. Therefore, Long Yu had plenty of time. Long Yu went deeper and deeper into the territory of the soul race. The closer he went to the center of the territory, the more he felt the overall strength of the soul race. Compared to the situation of the human race and the demon race, the soul race had too many large training planets in the territory of the soul race. Just like the King Killer planet in the Iron Wall galaxy, it was one of the 4 major training planets in the Iron Wall galaxy. But within the territory of the Spiritas, there were at least a dozen cultivation planets similar to the King Killer star in every galaxy. Moreover, there were also 1 or 2 super large cultivation planets. These cultivation planets were home to numerous cultivation geniuses and masters. Even if Long Yu were trapped in one of those training planets, it would not be easy for him to escape. As for the sources of divine symbols in the depths of the territory of the soul race, they were all very powerful and well guarded. At least for Long Yu right now, he did not have the ability to rob those large sources of divine symbols yet. It's really hard to tell whether a race is strong or not from the edge of the territory. Only by going deep into the territory of a race can one see just how strong it is. Long Yu thought to himself, but he did not retreat. Instead, he continued to go deeper into the center of the territory of the soul race. The current situation was still not suitable for him to take action. The storm caused by the 9 nether hunters was far from over. If he took action now, he would undoubtedly be courting death. Even in the center of the territory of the soul race, he could see that there were patrols everywhere that were far more frequent than usual. Moreover, there were many places with hidden traps and arrays. If not for the fact that Long Yu had cultivated balanced control and his spiritual sense was at least 10 times stronger than ordinary people, he would have already stepped into those traps. If one wanted to travel alone in the territory of a foreign race, one needed to have an all-round ability. It was not something that could be achieved with just pure combat strength. Even if Long Yu reached the demigod realm, it was impossible for him to fight the entire soul race alone. That was not realistic. Even if enough 7th phase sovereigns exploded around him at the same time, they could still pull him into a spacetime storm. Even a demigod would find it difficult to escape unscathed in an extreme situation, not to mention that there were so many demigods in the soul race. Even if Long Yu was strong, it was impossible for him to fight so many demigods alone, not to mention that he was only a 7th phase sovereign. He was far from being able to fight demigod experts. It had been about a month since he entered the border of the soul race's territory. During this period of time, Long Yu was like a spectator, constantly roaming around the soul race's territory and observing the situation. Although he was nervous, compared to when he was in the eroding moon ancient region, he was still more relaxed. It was as if he was taking a stroll in his back garden, and he did not feel any pressure at all. About a month after he entered the soul race's territory, he felt that the time was almost right and the next operation was once again put on the agenda. First, he had to choose a target location. In the depths of the soul race's territory, almost any cultivation planet could become a target. This was because Long Yu could feel the aura of the divine character's essence. In other words, on any cultivation planet, there were soul race cultivators who had fused with the divine character's essence. This was the extremely prosperous center of the soul race's territory. The cultivation planet here was extremely prosperous, and the requirements for Long Yu's operation were even higher. He could not afford to make any mistakes. Otherwise, not only would he fail to achieve his goal, he might even land himself in danger. Before the operation began, Long Yu took the initiative to activate his chess piece. It was the devil dust doppelganger that he had condensed before. It had always stayed in the galaxy far away from where he was, hidden extremely well, and had not been discovered by any soul race member. Although the distance was extremely far, Long Yu could still control the 2 devil dust doppelgangers and have them condense a large number of 9 nether hunters. Then, he had these 9 nether hunters scatter in all directions and land on the nearby cultivation planets to kill the soul race cultivators. Without a doubt, this was a plan to lure the tiger away from the mountain. When the 2 devil dust doppelgangers that Long Yu had left behind took action, in less than a day, the surrounding soul race experts would definitely head toward the 2 distant places. They would even attract demigods, and many traps would be activated at the same time. And this was the time when Long Yu really took action. Among the humans and demons, there had never been anyone as bold as Long Yu, preparing to rob the cultivation planet at the center of the soul race's territory. But only Long Yu had the strength and wisdom to do so. After the two devil dust doppelgangers took action, Long Yu waited for half a day. Then, with lightning speed, he landed on the cultivation planet. I wonder how many divine characters' essence I can obtain on this cultivation planet? If everything goes well, we can go back after we finish this job. Long Yu thought in his heart. With him as the center, countless 9 nether hunters spread out in all directions of the cultivation planet. Chapter 1614. The cultivation planet that Long Yu had descended on was filled with lush greenery. All sorts of strange trees grew on the surface of the entire cultivation planet. Each of these plants was extremely large. They were even larger than the towering trees on the planets in the human race and demon races territories. Each of these giant trees was hundreds of miles tall. Their canopies extended for thousands of miles, enveloping a large continent. There were also many natural creatures on the surface of such a cultivation planet. However, they were mostly insects. There were no beasts or birds. Existences like insects formed a part of the entire cultivation planet's ecosystem. As for the soul race, they were like foreign creatures. They had no physical bodies, but they did not need to eat. They only needed to absorb the heaven-earth spiritual energy produced by the planet to survive. If he were to rely on his naked eye, Long Yu wouldn't be able to see any cultivators on the planet. However, if he released his spiritual sense, he would discover that there were countless soul race cultivators on the cultivation planet, even in the ocean. Nearly 109 nether hunters were divided into 100 batches. They surged out in all directions of the planet. They killed any soul race cultivators they saw as quickly as possible. The place that Long Yu chose was the most prosperous place on the entire cultivation planet. There were the most soul race experts in such a prosperous place. However, it was also the most densely packed. It was the easiest place to increase the number of 9 nether hunters. If they encountered any troublesome opponents, Long Yu would personally deal with them. In any case, he decided that this was the last time. He would run after killing them. He didn't need to worry about exposing his true form. In the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, the entire cultivation planet was filled with hundreds of thousands of 9 nether hunters. They were like a raging wave that spread into the distance. During this period of time, Long Yu also discovered 2 soul race experts. They were both 7th phase great rulers. They should be the strongest group of people on this cultivation planet. Normally, they could be said to be the strongest experts on the entire cultivation planet. They guarded this cultivation planet and possessed the most abundant resources on this cultivation planet. It was just that it was unknown whether the soul race was formed by a family or some other basic organization. These 2 powerhouses were equivalent to the patriarchs of the human cultivation planet. Now that they had encountered such a situation, they had to personally appear. Unfortunately, they were targeted by Long Yu as soon as they appeared. The reason why they were stronger than the other soul race members was because their innate divine ability fruits contained a certain amount of divine text essence. This was truly worthy of being a super cultivation planet at the center of Spirita's territory. Long Yu had only just begun, and he had already discovered these 2 powerhouses. It was similar to Master Bai Yun from the White Cloud Galaxy that Long Yu had met before. He was probably not far away from the demigod level, except that he didn't have the opportunity to make further progress. Long Yu had killed people like that many times in the eroding moon ancient domain. These 2 powerful 7th phase soul race sovereigns were probably quite old, so they gave the opportunity to the younger generation and didn't participate in the eroding moon ancient domain's operation. Unfortunately, they were like shrimps in front of Long Yu, unable to put up any resistance. When Long Yu was a 5th phase sovereign, he could rely on his intelligence and the like to kill those peak 7th phase sovereigns time and time again in the eroding moon ancient domain. Now that he was a peak 7th phase sovereign, there was no need to even mention him. Unless it was a super expert on the same level as the golden six-winged expert from before, they wouldn't be a match for him at all. Dark Flame Ghost. Long Yu raised his hand, and the Dark Flame Ghost, a high-grade modified divine source artifact, suddenly shot out. It brought with it endless black flames as it shot forward, directly engulfing one of the powerful 7th phase soul race sovereigns. However, in the next moment, Long Yu directly withdrew the Dark Flame Ghost. The Dark Flame Ghost's black flames had only burned the opponent's mind and soul into nothingness, but it still left behind the opponent's small world. Long Yu stepped forward, flipped his hand, and put the small world into his pouch. He didn't have the time to search the remains of the small world for now. In any case, he was sure that there was at least one shadow essence inside, and he just had to kill another one to collect it. Long Yu didn't hesitate at all. He raised his hand and used the boundless grasp, blasting it towards the other 7th phase soul race sovereigns. The terrifying forest devil divine characters directly shattered the opponent's mind and soul, and the remains of the small world fell into Long Yu's hands. Even if these peak existences were 7th phase great rulers, they were not Long Yu's match. This was because his current strength had already surpassed that of ordinary sovereigns. Just by relying on the Jade branding mark, Long Yu was able to reduce the density of power within these sovereigns' bodies by half. This made the opponent's power like cotton compared to Long Yu, and it was impossible for them to stop Long Yu. Soul race experts continuously appeared, hunting down the 9 underworld hunters that Long Yu had summoned. Unfortunately, the number of 9 underworld hunters on the cultivation planet continued to increase, until it became completely unstoppable. Finally, reinforcements from other cultivation planets surged out from the spacetime teleportation arrays, constructing one formation after another, and began to eliminate the 9 underworld hunters in large numbers. However, at this time, Long Yu had already taken the small worlds of the 2 7th phase soul race sovereigns and left the cultivation planet. In the entire cultivation planet, these 2 7th phase soul race sovereigns were the strongest. Now that Long Yu had obtained these 2 small worlds, there was no need for him to kill the other soul race sovereigns. After all, it was simply too dangerous to stay. Before he left, he activated the Dragon Blood Sacred Wind diagram and completely erased all traces of his existence. Then, he activated the Void Underworld Dragon Blade and rapidly approached the borders of the Soul Race's territory. At this time, Long Yu did not choose the direction of the Void Galaxy, but the direction of the Demon Race's territory. He did not head towards the Void Galaxy, because if he was being followed, he might bring disaster to the Void Galaxy. After all, the overall strength of the Void Galaxy was still lacking, and it could not withstand a large-scale attack from the Soul Race. However, the Demon Race was different. In any case, the war between the Soul Race and the Demon Race had existed for a long time, so there was nothing wrong with Long Yu drawing the hatred onto the Demon Race. With the Void Underworld Dragon Blade's current speed, it would take Long Yu only about a month to cross half of the Soul Race's territory. This speed was already very terrifying. He hid in the void, constantly teleporting, and threw the chaos of the Soul Race to the back of his mind. Right now, he did not have the time to think about the situation in the Soul Race's territory. This was because he would not leave any clues for them. All he needed to do was to keep running. Moreover, his escape route was very strange, and he would not give the Soul Race any chance to catch up. Coupled with his terrifying speed, it was even more impossible for the Soul Race to catch up. Of course, it was possible that some demigods of the Soul Race had some secret methods that could detect his existence, but he was not particularly scared right now. After all, he did not need to rob anything anymore. If he only needed to run, he was confident that he could break through even if there was a demigod right in front of him. Along the way, he began to search the remains of the 2 small worlds, and what he found shocked him. What a bountiful harvest! Long Yu did not expect that he had made a fortune this time. From the remains of the two soul race demigods, he had obtained 2 pieces of wood elemental essence, 4 pieces of shadow essence, and 2 pieces of life essence. There were 8 pieces of divine text essence and elemental essence in total. This was the first time that Long Yu had obtained so many existences, and it did not seem particularly difficult to obtain them. It was just that the other party was hiding in the center of the soul race's territory, which was why it seemed more dangerous. In terms of strength, the 2 soul race demigods were not enough for Long Yu to pay attention to at all. Long Yu pondered for a moment. It seemed like he didn't need the shadow essence anymore. Of the remaining 2 sacred abilities, one was the soul seal siphon and the other was the 9 underworld dragon breath. It seemed like it would be better if he fused the wood origin essence. If the wood elemental essence was fused into one of Red Oriole's innate techniques, it would give her blood-colored whip the ability to destroy the mind and soul. What if it was fused into Dragon Breath of the 9 Nether? This was a divinized technique that had been fused with the wood elemental essence. If it could attack the mind and soul directly, the damage would be extremely terrifying, because Dragon Breath of the 9 Nether was a pure attack technique in the first place. As for Soul Seal Siphon, it was a restriction technique. The wood elemental essence might be able to give it the effect of trapping the opponent's mind and soul. But in any case, Long Yu did not have the time to experiment right now. Even if he experimented in the void, it was possible that he would give himself away, and any clues right now could lead to his whereabouts being captured by the demigods of the soul race. A demigod of the soul race was not very scary to Long Yu. He could escape anyway. He was not particularly scared of 2 demigods of the soul race, either. However, if more than 3 demigods of the soul race attacked him together, then he would definitely be killed. He could only deal with demigod experts right now, not to mention the powerful demigods guarding the central area of the soul race's territory. The demigods that could catch up to him were basically existences close to the peak of the demigod level. The density of their power was definitely more than 10 times that of regular cultivators. It was even possible that it could reach 20 times. It was really unwise for Long Yu to waste time here. As for testing the effect of the technique, he could wait until he left the soul race's territory. When he reached the demon territory, his safety would be somewhat guaranteed. At the very least, there were many demigod experts in the human race and the demon race right now. The soul race did not have the guts to attack the demon race recklessly. Chapter 16:15. Long Yu moved quickly toward the demon race's territory, covering thousands of kilometers in a flash. Behind him, the entire soul race's territory was already in chaos. Although he was alone, he had caused tremendous damage to the soul race's territory with the Hunter of Tartarus. It could be said that ever since the soul race had developed, something like this had never happened. A foreign race had actually invaded the core of their territory and caused such great damage. For Long Yu, he did not feel that he had done anything great. After all, the alien races were hostile. It did not matter how many he killed. It would be best if he could clean up the soul race so that the demon race and the human race would have more territory and develop faster. At the very least, their overall strength would be much stronger. Right now, the human race had a lot more top warriors than before, but their overall strength had not changed much. It was still difficult for the 2 races to rise completely with just a few more demigod. In the entire soul race's territory, the demigods had basically taken action. Even the arrogant demigods of the soul race had taken action in anger. However, it was not so easy for them to find Long Yu. How vast was the soul race's territory? Long Yu alone couldn't even be considered as a speck of dust in this territory. If the other party wanted to find him, the only way was through divination. However, Long Yu had used the Dragon Blood Saintly Wind diagram to erase all information about him. Even if the other party wanted to make a divination, they wouldn't be able to. Unless the soul race among the enemy's demigods had grasped a bit of the power of time, they might be able to trace the traces left by Long Yu with the power of time. That was the only possibility for them to trace Long Yu. In the vast soul race's territory, there were as many as 20 demigods. Even inside the territory there were at least 10. Among so many demigods, there were indeed one or two who had a deeper understanding of the power of time. They did not need to use the power of time, because they could not control time on their own. However, one of the demigods of the soul race had a keen sense of time and could detect the aura left behind in a certain place. It was exactly this ability that allowed the demigod of the soul race to deduce Long Yu's approximate location. Although Long Yu mostly used the 9 Nether Hunter, there was no doubt that he would leave behind a corresponding aura when he condensed the 9 Nether Hunter. So, it was not too difficult to track him based on this. Once Long Yu's location was confirmed, the next step would be much easier. The territory of the Soul Clan was naturally similar to that of the Human Clan and Demon Clan. It was filled with the existence of space-time teleportation arrays. If one wanted to surround Long Yu, they only needed to use the space-time teleportation arrays and rush towards Long Yu's location. However, Long Yu's speed was simply too fast. Even in the territory of the Soul Race, it was still an extremely difficult task to completely surround Long Yu. Therefore, for this operation, the Soul Race had sent a total of 6 demigods. At first, the 2 demigods were unable to catch up to Long Yu, but now, the 6 demigods of the Soul Race had attacked together, vowing to surround Long Yu in a small space and kill him. Based on the direction that Long Yu was heading, the demigods of the Soul Race had even sent their subordinates to set up some traps in the void of space ahead of him. Once Long Yu fell into those traps, he would be completely trapped. Although it was not impossible for him to escape, it would definitely be able to trap him until the 6 demigods arrived. Long Yu did not know any of this. However, he did not move forward in a straight line foolishly. Instead, he moved forward in a zigzag pattern. The direction of his teleportation was not a straight line, but an irregular one. There was no pattern to his movement at all. In this way, even if the Soul Race could learn his location, it would not be so easy for them to surround and intercept him in advance. However, 10 days later, Long Yu discovered that the environment around him seemed to be a little strange. From front, back, left, right, up, and down, there were a total of 6 directions, and each of them had a powerful aura that was approaching where he was. Moreover, he discovered that the void nearby had been sealed. Is it a demigod? Also, they've completely sealed the space nearby, making it impossible for Little Void to teleport me out. Long Yu frowned slightly. If it weren't for the fact that he still had some tricks up his sleeves, it was very likely that he would have been surrounded and killed by the other party. It could be seen that the other party had definitely prepared this formation for a very long time to be able to accurately trap him in this void. Unfortunately, the demigods of the Soul Race were still wrong about one thing. Long Yu had a lot of tricks up his sleeves. Path of 9 Ghosts. Long Yu activated his 7th innate technique. Immediately, a pitch-black beam of light shot out and swept through the void, shattering the spatial seal in front of him and completely disintegrating the spatial divine symbols contained in it. It's a pity that this spatial seal is not a demigod's trick. Otherwise, it could have trapped me for a little longer. As for now, goodbye. The corners of Long Yu's mouth curled. The void nether dragon dagger flashed away with him, and his entire body disappeared from this area. He appeared in a place that was originally 10 million kilometers away. This scene shocked the 6 demigods of the Soul Race who had begun to surround and attack him. This trap was something that they had painstakingly designed in the past 10 days, but they did not expect that this human brat would break it so easily. The problem was in one of the conditions, and that was the spatial seal. The 6 demigods did not know that Long Yu actually had a way to break through the spatial seal. Also, it was such an easy way. This time, Long Yu slipped away from their encirclement. It would not be so easy for them to catch up to Long Yu again. More importantly, Long Yu's teleportation speed was too fast, so fast that the 6 demigods could not catch up with him directly. The Void Nether Dragon Dagger was a special primordial divine grade. There were few weapons of such a level in the entire territory of the Soul Race, not to mention that it happened to be a speed type. If Long Yu could awaken the Void Nether Dragon Dagger to a higher level, his speed would obviously be even faster. Also, some special awakening skills would be derived, which could significantly improve Long Yu's comprehensive combat ability. Different from advanced source items such as the Dark Flame Ghost Chain, the Dark Flame Ghost Chain could only be used to kill enemies and had no other uses. The Void Nether Dragon Dagger was different. After rushing out of the encirclement, Long Yu did not stop at all. He continuously traveled through the void and quickly left the location of the previous trap. Even if the demigods of the Soul Race could lock onto his location, it would not be possible to set up such a trap again in a short period of time. During this period of time, Long Yu happened to be able to accumulate his strength. For this trip to the Soul Race's territory, he had prepared a lot of recovery pills. Only at this moment did they come in handy. In his small world, he often prepared 5 Devil Dust clones. These 5 Devil Dust clones were completely condensed by Long Yu to break the opponent's spatial seal. After all, if there was a next time, the opponent's spatial seal would definitely be set up by the demigods themselves. If that was the case, it would not be so easy for Long Yu to break the spatial seal. He had to make preparations in advance. And just 12 days after Long Yu left the first trap area, that feeling of danger descended again, and he once again broke into a spatial seal area. Just as he had expected, this spatial seal area had already been set up by the demigods of the Soul Race. It would definitely not allow him to slip away as easily as before. Unfortunately, Long Yu was already prepared for this. 5 Devil Dust clones appeared, each using the path of the 9 underworlds towards the spatial seal area. Combined with the effect of the Jade branding mark, and the simultaneous attacks of the 5 Devil Dust clones, the spatial seal in that area immediately began to collapse. Although the speed of collapse was not particularly fast, it was enough for Long Yu to escape from this space. The demigods of the Soul Race, who were attacking from 6 directions, were almost going crazy. They did not expect that this human brat could even break the spatial seal set up by the demigod. One of the demigods of the Soul Race felt that the power of the spatial seal that it had set up was suddenly reduced by half. It was exactly because of this that the human brat was able to gradually disintegrate its power. Before the 6 demigods of the Soul Race reached Long Yu slipped away from under their noses again. And this time, it was very likely to be the last chance for the Soul Race to besiege Long Yu. In a few days, Long Yu would be able to leave the territory of the Soul Race and go to the territory of the demons. Once Long Yu completely left the territory of the Soul Race and went to the battlefield of the alien races, it would be inconvenient for the 6 demigods of the Soul Race to chase after him. Because once the 6 demigods of the Soul Race chased after him, it was very likely that the other races would take action. Just the confirmation that the 6 demigods of the Soul Race were outside was very likely to cause the nearby Divine Water Race, Ice Race, and so on to attack the territory of the Soul Race. They had to consider this situation. Therefore, their last chance was to stop Long Yu before he left the territory of the Soul Race. Fortunately, there were some arrays on the border of the Soul Race's territory all year round. These arrays were completely activated at this moment. Usually, these arrays were used to block enemies from the outside, but now they were used to block enemies from the territory from escaping. The Soul Race had never been as embarrassed as this time. As a result, the 6 demigods of the Soul Race hated Long Yu to the extreme. If they did not eliminate him, it would definitely be the greatest humiliation in the history of the Soul Race. When did the declining human race become so arrogant and despotic in the Soul Race's territory? Chapter 16:16. Long Yu soon approached the border of the Soul Race's territory. He knew very well that the closer he got to this moment, the more dangerous it would be. If he was not careful, he might be caught by the demigods of the Soul Race, and the consequences would be obvious. If there were only 1 or 2 demigods of the Soul Race, he could still find a way to escape from them. However, there were 6 demigods of the Soul Race attacking together, so there was nothing he could do. If Long Yu was surrounded by them, he would probably be killed in less than 3 seconds. Of course, they might not necessarily kill him, but the consequences would probably be worse than being killed. How do I escape from the Soul Race's territory? Long Yu knew that this was a difficult question, but no matter how difficult it was, he had to try, or he would be dead in the end. Fortunately, even the demigods of the Soul Race could not tell the difference between his real body and the devil dust clones. Even the power of deduction would lose its accuracy when there were devil dust clones around. This was Long Yu's last resort. If he was seen through and stopped by the demigods, then there was really nothing he could do. 10 demon dust doppelgangers appeared from his body. The reason why he had saved this move for the very end was because the demon dust doppelgangers consumed too much of his energy. If he had used this move in the Spirita's territory, it was likely that he would have used up all of his pills before he even reached the border. So, this was the key. The devil dust clones flew out when they approached the border of the Soul Race's territory. The Void Spirit Dragon Blade had left the devil dust clones with the grand beginning power of the water, which could allow these devil dust clones to travel through the void more than 10 times in a row. This was what the Void Spirit Dragon Blade and Long Yu had been planning for a long time, and now it was finally going to be implemented. When Long Yu's plan was carried out, the 6 demigods of the Soul Race and the other experts of the Soul Race were all dumbfounded. The 11 human kids scattered in different directions. Which one was the real one? Even the demigod of the Soul Race, who had a keen sense of time, could not deduce the existence of Long Yu's true body with his own power. The 10 devil dust clones of Long Yu and his true body, however, did not show any difference. They simply dispersed in all directions. The 11 Long Yus quickly approached the border of the Soul Race's territory and triggered the warning array. 9 Nether Path. Long Yu and the 10 Devil Dust clones used the 9 Underworld Paths techniques at the same time. Because they were Devil Dust clones, even the innate divine abilities they used were exactly the same. There was no difference between them. At this critical moment, the 6 demigods of the Soul Race could only try their luck. After all, they had 6 demigods. If they separated to stop Long Yu, there was a 50% chance that they could stop the boy's true body. Each of Long Yu's devil dust clones was at least 100 million kilometers away from each other, which was the distance of 10 times of teleportation. If they were all connected to each other, it would be like a spider web. The 6 demigods of the Soul Race each found one of them and quickly charged at them. Coincidentally, Long Yu's true body was targeted by one of the demigods of the Soul Race. However, this demigod was not very strong. Its power density was about 13 times that of a regular cultivator, unlike the other 5 demigods of the Soul Race, whose power density was more than 15 times. I can resist this one demigod, but I'll have to use methods like the Dark Flame Ghost Chains. Once I use the Dark Flame Ghost Chains, my true body will be exposed, and the other demigods of the Soul Race will come after me. Long Yu's head was extremely calm. He did not panic at all. Instead, he was considering countless possibilities in his head. Thankfully, these demigods are all Soul Race, which makes it easier to defend. Thinking to himself, Long Yu gave up the idea of resistance in the end. It was impossible to counterattack and kill the other party. In fact, it was impossible to even buy time. All he could do now was resist the other party's attacks head-on and destroy the spatial seal at the border of the Soul Race's territory in this period of time. The power of the space blockade surrounded the entire border of the Soul Race. Once it was opened, Even demigod experts could not pass through easily, not to mention Long Yu. Fortunately, Long Yu had the innate ability of the Path of Nine Nether, and he could still slowly dismantle this layer of space blockade. The 10 devil dust clones of Long Yu, together with his true body, were all activating the Path of Nine Nether with all their strength. The dark light disintegrated this layer of space blockade as quickly as possible, and the attacks of the 6 demigods of the soul race also arrived at this moment. Waves of terrifying mental attacks landed on Long Yu and the other 5 devil dust clones. However, the silver radiance of the world-purifying body appeared on the surface of the clones, blocking the majority of the attacks. The attacks that the 5 devil dust clones encountered were much stronger than what Long Yu was facing. Basically, they only lasted for 3 seconds before the defense of the body of Pure World was announced to be broken and completely shattered. Just like that, a part of the mental power in the devil dust clones was completely destroyed. The connection between Long Yu and the 5 devil dust clones was also announced to be cut off, and he could no longer control the 5 devil dust clones to do anything else. It was to the extent that the 5 demon dust clones would soon completely collapse due to losing their mental connection with Long Yu. The demigod of the soul race that attacked Long Yu was slightly weaker, so it allowed Long Yu to resist for a relatively long time. Moreover, when the opponent launched another attack, Long Yu activated the method of the world-cleansing soul mirror and directly reflected part of the opponent's power back 10 times. Although the world-cleansing soul mirror could not completely reflect the power of a demigod expert, this move still shocked the demigod of the soul race. He immediately took defensive measures and blocked the mental attack that was reflected back by Long Yu. It was also at this moment that Long Yu finally made a gap in the space blockade in front of him. Even though it was just a gap, it was enough for Long Yu. "Little Sue, let's go." Long Yu summoned the Void Soul Dragon Dagger. The next moment, a surging power of the water element emerged from where he was. Then, he teleported to the outside world and finally broke through the blockade of the entire border of the soul race's territory. As long as there was a gap, Long Yu could turn into nothingness and pass through it, and then be teleported away by the void. Only by combining all kinds of methods could Long Yu successfully escape from the soul race's territory and successfully achieve his goal this time. However, compared to the 8 divine language essences and the essence of the absolute beginning that he obtained this time, the trouble he caused was really a bit too big. If the demigods of the soul race knew that Long Yu originally only wanted to rob the 3 shadow essences, they would almost cry. They would have been better off just giving them to Long Yu at the very least. Their losses would not be so great. It must be noted that what Long Yu caused, at least 10 billion individuals of the soul race had died. Countless cultivation planets had even become ghost towns because of this, without the existence of any soul race cultivators. How could a cultivation planet that had been ravaged by the hunters of Tartarus be described as miserable? Of course, if Long Yu had directly asked the soul race for the shadow essences in the beginning, the other party would have definitely thought that he was crazy and had something wrong with his head. In any case, Long Yu finally escaped, and after he escaped, he directly teleported to an extremely far-away place, deep into the battlefield of the alien race. If the 6 demigods of the soul race still pursued him, it was very likely that he would be discovered by other races, and it would bring certain danger to the soul race's territory. The 6 demigods of the soul race could see this very clearly. However, they were really unwilling to watch Long Yu escape just like that. Finally, after some discussion, they decided that the 2 strongest demigods of the soul race would attack and continue to pursue Long Yu in the battlefield of the alien race. These 2 demigods of the soul race had both reached a power density of 18 times. They could be counted as the strongest among the demigods of the soul race. In a head-on confrontation, Long Yu would probably be completely blown into smithereens in 2 breaths. Moreover, one of the 2 demigods of the soul race was the existence that had a keen perception of the power of time, and it could accurately sense Long Yu's location. Right now, Long Yu was completely exhausted, and when he was fleeing, he had basically used up all the pills on him. It was already impossible to use the Devil Dust clone to distract their attention. Fortunately, I've already reached the battlefield of the alien race. That was what Long Yu was thinking, but it was also at this moment that he actually sensed waves of intense energy coming from the void nearby. Some of the energy waves even gave him a familiar feeling. He didn't think too much and quickly passed through the starry sky. However, not long after, when the two demigods of the soul race caught up, the starry sky suddenly changed. In the void, there were actually several experts in the demigod level, and they were from the human race and the demon race. Long Yu even knew many of them. Red Oriole? Moon Song? You've also become demigods, but why are you here? Long Yu turned around and saw the familiar figures of the two women. He was immediately stunned. This was almost an unexpected reinforcement. Apart from Moon Song and Red Oriole, there were 3 other demigods in the field. There were 5 demigods in total. Although many of them were new demigods, the outcome of the battle against the 2 demigods of the soul race was still very easy to determine. We estimated that you were about to escape from the demon race, so we waited here for a while. We didn't expect to see you. There are other people nearby, and they're all on their way. This time, we're going to heavily injure the soul race. The demigod of the heavenly bat demon race that Long Yu was very familiar with, Gaudy, flashed past like a phantom and appeared between the 2 demigods of the soul race. The terrifying power of the revelation level burst out at this moment. Chapter 16-17. For the demons, the soul race was a great enemy that had troubled them for a long time. After the battle in the Eclipse Moon Ancient Domain, the overall strength of the human race and the demon race had skyrocketed, which made the demigods want to carry out a big operation. The timing of the operation was exactly the same as Long Yu's operation. After Long Yu caused havoc in the soul race's territory, it happened to be the most chaotic moment in the entire soul race's territory. If they took action now, they would definitely gain the most. Right now, there were 5 demigods in front of Long Yu. The demigods Gaudy, Black Tiger, Landslide, and the new demigods Red Oriole and Moon Song. Among them, Red Oriole and Moon Song had obviously just come out of seclusion and came to this space zone to help Long Yu. That was quite a surprise for Long Yu. He didn't expect that the 2 girls would both step into the demigod level at this moment. Gaudy, Black Tiger, and Landslide, the 3 veteran demigods, were much stronger than the 2 new demigods. Black Tiger and Landslide both had a power density that was 15 times that of regular cultivators, and Gaudy had a power density that was 16 times. It was a lot stronger than the 10 times that of a new demigod. However, Red Oriole and Moon Song had the advantage of having demigod source items. Not to mention Red Oriole's mid-level modification divine source item, even Moon Song's beginner source item could be counted as a very powerful weapon. Regardless of whether it was Flamboyant, Black Tiger or Landslide, none of them had a quasi-divine source item on them. After all, not everyone could have a quasi-divine source item. If they had the power to bring out a modified quasi-divine source artifact from the eroding Moon Ancient Realm, then the overall strength of the human race and the demon race would have exploded a long time ago, and they wouldn't have suddenly improved just because of this incident. 5 demigods appeared and surrounded the 2 demigods of the soul race. Even Long Yu, who was at the side, was ignored for the time being, because their target was to kill the 2 soul race demigods. Right now, the 2 demigods of the soul race had left the territory of the soul race and were separated from the other demigods of the soul race. It was a great opportunity to eliminate them. If he did not take the opportunity to kill them, it would not be so easy to kill them later. Long Yu heaved a sigh of relief. The demigods Gaudy, Black Tiger, and Landslide were quite strong. Together with the support of Red Oriole and Moon Song's quasi-divine source items, They basically suppressed the two soul race demigods the moment they entered the battle. Long Yu, on the other hand, took the opportunity to rest on the spot. It was very likely that there would be another battle later, so he had to make early preparations. At the very least, he had to recover a little more of his strength so that he would be able to escape more easily. He observed the battle in the field. It was basically a one-sided battle, but even if the 5 of them worked together, it would not be an easy task to completely kill the 2 powerful demigods of the soul race. In particular, they had to be careful not to let the enemy slip away. If he revealed an opening and allowed the other party to escape, then all of his previous efforts would be in vain. The number of demigods in a race was basically 1 less after the death of one. For the soul race, if these 2 demigods were killed, the overall strength of their race would definitely be affected. This time, the joint operation of the human race and the demon race was clearly not the work of just a few demigods. Before the 2 demigods of the soul race could find a way to escape, Long Yu sensed that other demigods were quickly approaching from different directions. They were either demigods of the human race or demigods of the demon race. The next moment, it was Frost and Imperial Wind who appeared in front of Long Yu. These 2 new demigods were responsible for guarding other places. Now that there was a battle here, they rushed over as soon as possible. Although they were 2 new demigods, they were not weak. If they joined the battle, they would definitely be the last straw that broke the enemy's back. Moreover, from another direction, Long Yu discovered an unexpected person who had also become a demigod. The Holy Emperor. The Holy Emperor that Long Yu had not seen for a long time had actually appeared in this situation and was flying over from another direction. He was greatly surprised. In an instant, the 8 demigods had gathered. The Holy Emperor greeted Long Yu with a smile from afar, but for the moment, she could not come over and say anything. She could only immediately throw herself into the battle. It could be seen that the Holy Emperor was also a new demigod. Her power density was only 10 times that of a regular cultivator. However, with her and Frost and Imperial Wind joining the battle, the situation immediately became clear. Everyone had a clear division of labor. 2 of them were responsible for stopping the enemy from escaping, while the rest of them attacked with all their might. The 2 demigods of the soul race were unable to take care of both sides at the same time. Very soon, they were in an extremely difficult situation. With 8 attacking 2, the situation could not be clearer. This also meant that the territories of the human race and the demon race were basically in a completely unguarded state. However, it was very clear that the human race and the demon race had already made arrangements, and they were not afraid that anything unexpected would happen during this period of time. The 2 demigods of the soul race must have called for help a long time ago. Therefore, at this moment, Long Yu could sense that the other 4 demigods of the soul race, who had originally stayed in the soul race's territory, were rushing over as fast as they could from the direction of the soul race's territory. Unfortunately, everything happened too suddenly. Even if the 4 demigods of the soul race arrived as fast as they could, it was already too late. The 2 demigods of the soul race who were besieged were quickly drowned by everyone's attack. In the end, they did not even have the chance to self-destruct. They were strangled in the cradle. The 2 spiritual life forms quickly disappeared from this part of the starry sky. The remains of the 2 small worlds were collected by everyone. Then, the 8 demigods joined hands and faced the 4 demigods of the soul race who were attacking them head-on. Obviously, the other party only had 4 demigods and did not dare to charge in like this. The main reason was that the 2 demigods of the soul race who were besieged had already been killed. This made it meaningless for the remaining 4 demigods of the soul race to rush over. It was very likely that they would be killed as well. Just as the 2 sides were facing off in the void, another accident happened. The human race and the demon race had prepared too many things for this attack. In the originally empty void, a group of alien life forms that Long Yu had never seen before suddenly appeared. These alien life forms were liquid life forms like the divine water race. However, they were completely transparent and appeared in the void in clusters like waves. It was obvious that these alien life forms had been hiding in the void all along. They had only suddenly appeared at this moment. This was an ambush. This is the wine race. They have been allies with the human race and the demon race for a long time. They have been waiting for this moment to attack the soul race. As if seeing the surprise in Long Yu's eyes, the demigod Gaudi smiled and sent a telepathic thought to him. The divine wine of the demigod college was brewed by the master brewer of the wine race. The wine race used to be a major race in this part of the starry sky. Unfortunately, the soul race rose and occupied the territory of the wine race. In order to destroy the soul race and reclaim their homeland, the wine race chose to ally with the human race and the demon race. Now they finally have the opportunity. So that's how it is. Long Yu had heard before that the human race and the demon race had cooperated with a certain alien race. Some of the things in the demigod college were provided by this alien race. Only now did he know that it was the wine race. Every individual of the wine race was made of transparent waves. At this moment, hundreds of thousands of them appeared in the void. Under the leadership of 3 demigod experts of the wine race, they charged toward the territory of the soul race. The wine race was a race that mainly understood the divine language of life. They also knew the divine language of shadow. After all, they were originally a race that lived in the territory of the soul race. For the wine race, the soul race was a competitor that was as strong as they were, and they could even be said to be mortal enemies. The 8 demigods of the human race and the demigods of the demigods managed to pin down the 4 demigods of the soul race. Then, the 3 demigods of the wine race began to attack the border of the soul race's territory. Under the attacks of hundreds of thousands of wine race's great sovereigns, the border collapsed almost immediately. Hundreds of thousands of experts of the wine race charged into the territory of the soul race and began an extremely tragic massacre. Although there were many armies of sovereigns guarding the border of the soul race's territory, the wine race had prepared for this moment for a long time. They had mobilized hundreds of thousands of sovereigns, all of whom were at least first-phase sovereigns. Compared to an ordinary army of sovereigns, the overall strength of the wine race army was much stronger. The armies of sovereigns of the soul race that were guarding the border had almost no ability to resist. They were crushed by the wine race army and turned into dust in the universe. Impressive. Long Yu was shocked by this arrangement. He didn't expect that he would cause such a large-scale war. Although he felt that the human race and the demon race were going to take action, he didn't expect that they would use his action as an opportunity to lure out 2 demigods of the soul race and kill them. Then, they would hold back the remaining 4 demigods. Then, the army of the wine race pressed down, leaving the border of the soul race's territory unguarded. It was obvious that the entire territory of the soul race was in an uproar. The demigods of the soul race that had been guarding other directions rushed over as fast as they could. It should be noted that in front of demigods, other cultivators were nothing more than fodder. After the 3 demigods of the wine race took the lead and charged into the territory of the soul race, they were like a hot knife through butter. In a short period of time, they completely broke through the border barrier of the soul race and occupied several spacetime teleportation arrays that were relatively close. Then, through these spacetime teleportation arrays, the wine race quickly advanced deeper into the territory of the soul race. The 3 demigods of the wine race each led an army of sovereigns of the wine race and wreaked havoc in 3 different directions. Chapter 1618. Saint Emperor, how did you become a demigod? At this time, Long Yu finally had the time to talk to the others. He was most surprised by the Saint Emperor's experience. The first thing he thought of was whether someone had given her a supreme creation item. But that was not the case. When you were in the eroding moon ancient region, I entered another special relic of the gods. I found some opportunities there, and stepped into the demigod level. The Saint Emperor smiled. Impressive, impressive. Long Yu wasn't joking. After experiencing the eroding moon ancient domain, he was very clear about the difficulty of these divine relics. If one didn't have enough talent, it would be impossible to come out alive. Not to mention breaking through the martial arts realm and obtaining more opportunities. As for the Sage Emperor, she was originally an elite of the White Feather monstrous clan. She was an ancient-era existence that had been sealed in the Netherworld realm. As such, there was no need to mention her talent. Among the White Feather monstrous clan, her bloodline had already surpassed all the other members of the White Feather monstrous clan. If she obtained an opportunity like the divine relic, it was not impossible for her to become a demigod. Red Oriole, Moon Song, congratulations on becoming a demigod. Long Yu congratulated them from the bottom of his heart. Now that there were many demigods in the human and Yao races, and Frost, Imperial Wind, and Long Zitian all had a supreme creation item, they should be able to pick out a genius to train and become a demigod. Thinking of this, the overall strength of the human and Yao races would become unprecedentedly strong. Perhaps in a short period of time, it could not compare to the glory of the human and Yao races, but compared to the decline of the recent thousands of years, it could be said that there was hope for them to rise again. The most important thing was the current battle. If they could successfully occupy the Soul Race's territory, it would be a great victory for the human, Yao, and Wine races. Just in terms of practical benefits, there would be countless benefits. Even if they could only occupy half of the Soul Race's territory, it would be a great improvement. The various heavenly treasures, creations, and so on produced would definitely have a great impact on the development of a race. I was so worried. You went to the Soul Race's territory alone to seek death. Luckily, you're fine. Red Oriole grumbled as she flew to Long Yu's side and hugged his arm. Do you think I'll die so easily? How can you not trust your man? Long Yu chuckled and touched her head. The girl had finally stepped into the level of demigod, which meant that she had reached a bottleneck in this space. It wouldn't be easy for her to continue advancing from demigod to demigod. Even if he wanted to double the density of the power, it would be extremely difficult. Even if he wanted to obtain another deified connate god power fruit, he would need a certain amount of luck. At the very least, after they became demigods, they would be able to resist even the demigods of other alien species. They would not be killed without any resistance. Even if they could not defeat the enemy, they would still be able to survive in a one-on-one battle. Fine, fine, fine. You're amazing. Break into the demigod level as soon as possible. Then, we'll have to count on you to lead the Void Galaxy and expand our territory. Red Oriole giggled. Although she was already a demigod, and could be said to be stronger than Long Yu, she was still very obedient when she was next to Long Yu. She did not show any arrogance toward Long Yu. It was mainly because she knew that it was only a matter of time before Long Yu became a demigod. Once Long Yu became a demigod, Long Yu would be much stronger than the other new demigods. He might even be stronger than many veteran demigods. Long Yu talked with everyone for a while, and then they began to analyze the overall situation. The experts of the Wine race had led hundreds of thousands of sovereigns to attack the Soul Race's territory, which was only one side of the operation. Under the arrangement of the demigods of the human race and the demon race, when Long Yu broke out of the Soul Race's territory, many sovereigns of the human race and the demon race had already attacked the border of the Soul Race's territory. Of course, most of the attack locations were very far away. After all, the border of the Soul Race's territory was very vast. In another direction, the human race and the monster race had even leaked some information to the Ice God race and the Desolate God race. These two foreign races' territories bordered the Soul Race's territory. Presumably, with the Ice God race and the Desolate God race's means, it was impossible for them to turn a blind eye. It could be said that at this time, the soul race's territory was under attack from all directions. Coupled with the cultivation planets that Long Yu had caused in the beginning, the entire soul race's territory was in complete chaos. This kind of chaos had not appeared for a long time. This could be called a disaster that could wipe out a race. Therefore, when the other races attacked from all directions, the highest alarm had been sounded within the soul race. Even some of the old monsters had been completely mobilized. The overall strength of a race not only depended on the number of demigods it had, but also on the strength of the strongest demigod. For example, the strongest demigod of the soul race was the Emperor of the soul race, and he had 25 times the strength density. Even the 3 new demigods like Red Orioles were not a match for such a powerful demigod. After all, apart from the strength density, he had already divinized all 7 of his connate techniques. He also had some special methods, such as godly martial arts techniques, quasi-divine source items, and so on. After all, he was the strongest existence of a race. The condition for the birth of quasi-divine source items was 20 times the strength density. Once a demigod reached 20 times the strength density, a quasi-divine source item would be born after his death. However, to modify a quasi-divine source item, a higher strength density would be required. Generally speaking, a strength density of 40 times the strength density would be enough to modify a quasi-divine source item, and so on. A demigod with a strength density of 60 times the strength density would be able to modify a quasi-divine source item in the middle level. In order to create a high-level modified quasi-divine source item, a strength density of at least 80 times the strength density would be enough. Such an existence would definitely be an overlord even in the super-alien races such as the Sword race, the Six-Winged race, and the Mechanical race, not to mention the remote areas such as the Human race, the Demon race, and the Soul race. In the Soul race, there were 3 demigod experts with a strength density of 20 times. The Human race and the Demon race, on the other hand, only had 1 each. Fortunately, among the 3 demigods of the Wine race, there was a very strong existence who also had a strength density of 25 times. He had been waiting for this day for a long time. After all, the overall strength of the Wine race was not strong. Without territory, it was a struggle for them to develop. If it weren't for the help of the Human race and the Demon race, the Wine race would have probably disappeared from this universe a long time ago, just like the Bone race a long time ago. The Soul race was facing an unprecedented crisis of extinction. Almost all the Soul race in the Soul race's territory were mobilized, and they sent one sovereign army after another to the borders of the territory. When a race faced a crisis of extinction, it would definitely explode with unprecedented cohesion. In the past, the Soul race nobles in the central area of the Soul race's territory had been content to enjoy themselves. Now they brought out their strongest strength and sent their strongest forces to the borders of the territory. Millions of Soul race experts at the sovereign secret realm were sent to the borders. Of course, the most important ones were demigod. In the Soul race, there were about 20 demigods, and all of them were moving toward the borders. The strongest demigod of the Soul race was rushing in the direction of the Wine race's attack. However, by the time he arrived, the Soul race's territory had already fallen to 1 or 2 galaxies. It should be noted that although the Soul race's territory was much larger than the Demon race's territory, there were only about 340 galaxies in total. In a short period of time, 2 galaxies had fallen into enemy hand. This was definitely a huge blow to the Soul race. Most importantly, very few of the Soul race in these 2 conquered galaxies had survived. There was only 1 demigod of the Soul race guarding the 2 galaxies near the borders. Now, he had joined the ranks of the crusade against Long Yu. At this moment, he was being held back by 8 demigods of the Human race and the Demon race. Unable to turn back in such a situation, there was no existence that could resist the Wine race's attack. After occupying the 2 galaxies, the Wine race began to set up camp. Within the two galaxies, they set up defensive formations and mental attack traps. Every spacetime teleportation formation that led to the depths of the Soul Race's territory was surrounded by many defenses. Once an army of the Soul Race or a demigod appeared through the spacetime teleportation formation, they would be attacked by the Wine Race. The Wine Race focused on 3 large spacetime teleportation formations, which were guarded by 3 demigods. As for the smaller teleportation formations, they were either directly destroyed by the Wine Race or set up countless traps as bait. Even if the strongest demigod appeared through these teleportation formations, they would still be delayed for a long time. It could be said that the Wine Race had prepared this battle plan for a long time. Now that it was implemented, the Soul Race was almost at their wits' end. It was basically impossible to take back the 2 lost galaxies for the time being. After all, the number of demigods of the Soul Race was limited, and other areas of the Soul Race's territory were also under attack. At this time, almost all the demigods of the human race and the demon race had left their nests. Only a few of them stayed in the territories of the human race and the demon race. The 2 alien races, the Ice God race and the Desolate God race, also took the opportunity to attack the Soul Race's territory at the same time. Even if they could take over a galaxy, it would still be a great deal. There were tremendous cultivation resources in one galaxy, enough to feed at least hundreds of billions of cultivators. The Soul Race in the entire Soul Race's territory went completely crazy. If they didn't go crazy now, they wouldn't have another chance. Facing the invaders, countless experts of the Soul Race in the Ruler's Secret Realm and the Great Ruler's Secret Realm chose to rush in and self-detonate, creating space turbulence with their own strength. At least a few alien races would die. Chapter 1619. A brutal race war had begun. Long Yu, on the other hand, only played a role in the beginning. Because he broke out of the Soul Race's territory and attracted 2 demigods of the Soul Race, all the plans could be carried out. Having killed 2 demigods of the Soul Race at the very beginning and stalled 4 demigods of the Soul Race, the overall strength of the Soul Race had been greatly weakened. However, it wasn't easy for Gaudy, Black Tiger, and the other demigods to kill the 4 demigods of the Soul Race. Therefore, they didn't do anything for now and simply confronted each other. The humans and demons weren't worried at all, but the 4 demigods of the Soul Race were in a hurry to return to the Soul Race's territory to help. Unfortunately, as soon as they made a move, Gaudy Flower and the others would react accordingly and completely pin them down. Isn't it a little too passive to just restrain him? Long Yu smiled when he saw that everyone was at daggers drawn, but they just couldn't make a move. The 4 demigods of the Soul Race are not weak. If we push them too hard, they may die together with us. There's no need for us to take the risk. Flamboyant said to Long Yu. You're 8 demigods. It'll be very easy for you to kill them. What Long Yu said was the truth. Of course, Long Yu would need his assistance. After all, the Jade branding mark would allow him to reduce the density of his opponent's power by half. This effect was extremely terrifying. It could even be said that it was one of the best things that Long Yu had obtained from the eroding moon ancient domain. However, this effect was not known to others. Red Oriole and Moon Song knew about it, but they didn't tell anyone else, mainly because they didn't want others to take advantage of Long Yu. After all, Long Yu was only a 7th phase ruler. If he wasn't careful, he could very well die at the hands of a demigod. Of the 8 demigods, 5 are new demigods. Their power density is only 10 times the most basic, and they don't have many deified techniques. Landslide, the demigod expert of the Black Tiger demon race, had always liked Long Yu. Now, he calmly analyzed the situation to Long Yu. In a real battle, the 2 new demigods might not be a match for any of the 4 Soul Race demigods. The mythical dragon wings nodded in agreement. Landslide is right. All we need to do now is pin them down, and we'll definitely succeed in annihilating the Soul Race. On the other hand, if we act rashly and something unexpected happens, it might affect the overall battle. Don't worry. Trust me. I'll attack first. You guys attack whichever side I attack. Make sure that one of them is killed," said Long Yu solemnly. He looked at Gaudy, Landslide, and Dragon Wing, the 3 veteran demigods of the demon race. He looked at Gaudy, Landslide, and Dragon Wing, the 3 veteran demigods of the demon race. Although you were able to escape from the Soul Race's territory after causing major trouble, it's not a joke to fight a demigod head-on. Do you have the confidence? Senior, you still don't trust me? Senior, you still don't trust me? Long Yu smiled. Red Oriole and Moon Song didn't say anything. Since Long Yu was going to take action, they just had to follow. Although Red Oriole was a little unruly to Long Yu, she was very obedient when faced with such a major event. The Saint Emperor's face was also filled with confusion. She had not seen Long Yu for a very long time. Although she had a very high opinion of Long Yu after hearing that he had barged into the Soul Race's territory and managed to escape after causing a huge ruckus, she did not expect that Long Yu would be the first to attack the demigods of the Soul Race. It had to be known that they were demigods. In front of a demigod expert, a 7th phase ruler could be completely killed if they weren't careful. Did Long Yu really have the confidence to do so? But when she thought of what Long Yu had done in the past, the Holy Emperor smiled. Trust in Long Yu appeared on her beautiful face. She still chose to believe in Long Yu. When Long Yu attacked later, she was determined to use her full strength. Frost and Imperial Wind were a little curious about Long Yu. Could it be that this brat's strength had become so strong? Even if the 8 of us work together, we might not be able to instantly kill a Soul Race demigod. If you attack first, it's very likely that they'll counterattack. Are you sure you want to do this? Gaudy, the demigod of the Heavenly Bat Yao race, asked with a serious expression. That's right. It'll be fine. If you attack together, there won't be any accidents. Long Yu was still very confident in the jade branding mark. And all of this communication was carried out in secret. The 4 Soul Race demigods didn't know at all. They were still thinking of ways to escape. With this kind of mentality, it would be even easier for Long Yu to launch a sneak attack. After hearing Long Yu's suggestion, everyone carefully thought about it. Very quickly, everyone decided to attack. The 3 veteran demigods of the Yao race didn't really want to attack. After all, their personalities were stable, and they weren't as impatient as new demigods. But since Long Yu had said it so confidently, they didn't refuse. They each prepared to attack. Taking advantage of the fact that the 4 Soul Race demigods weren't paying much attention, Long Yu suddenly attacked. Void Travel. Surrounded by the primordial power of the water element, Long Yu suddenly teleported to the side of one of the Soul Race demigods and then struck out with the Boundless Grasp. The Boundless Grasp, condensed by the demonic divine characters, was like an invisible hand that instantly grabbed the spirit and soul of the Soul Race demigod, trying to destroy it. Unfortunately, Long Yu's Boundless Grasp wasn't powerful enough to cause any damage to the opponent at all. On the contrary, the power of the Jade branding mark in his ancient god brain invaded along with the Boundless Grasp and instantly enveloped the Soul Race demigod, reducing the power density of the Soul Race demigod by half. Originally, the Soul Race demigod had a power density of 14 times, but at this moment, all the power in his body was instantly weakened by the influence of the Jade branding mark, reducing the power density of the Soul Race demigod to only 7 times. Attack! Without any hesitation, the others directly attacked. The 8 demigods launched their attacks at the same time. Even Long Yu had to dodge first. Countless techniques that targeted the spirit and soul fell on the Soul Race demigod that was hit by Long Yu's Boundless Grasp. Almost without any ability to resist, the Soul Race demigod was just about to launch an attack on Long Yu when it suffered an extremely terrifying attack. Also, the attack was launched after its power density had been reduced by half, making it impossible for it to resist at all. The defense barrier of the spirit and soul was opened, but it was completely shattered in an instant. Then, the destructive power of the spirit and soul fell on all directions of the soul race demigod, tearing its spirit and soul into pieces. Next one. The soul race demigod that died in such a way still had a certain amount of spirit and soul left. It wasn't like those that were swept by the dark flame ghost chains, which could be devoured by the sphere of Tartarus. However, even if the soul race left behind their spirit and soul after their death, the time that the remaining spirit and soul could survive in the world was too short. At this moment, Long Yu didn't have much time to devour this soul race demigod. He attacked another soul race demigod immediately. It was still the boundless grasp. His attacks were not aggressive, but the star branding stripes in the ancient god's brain had endowed him with a strong ability to weaken demigod experts. After the second attack, the attacks of the 8 demigods of the human race and the demon race came again and killed the second demigod of the soul race easily. At this moment, the remaining 2 soul race demigods realized what was going on. Seizing the opportunity, one of the soul race demigods broke the space barrier far away and tried to teleport away. The other soul race demigod, on the other hand, knew that Long Yu was very strong. He launched a terrifying attack at Long Yu straightforwardly. A storm of spirit and soul attacks seemed to have solidified and enveloped Long Yu from all directions. At the same time, a series of space divine runes completely trapped Long Yu, as if they were going to annihilate him in one go. It was a pity that Long Yu only curled his lips and activated the Khanate technique, the Book of Shadows. His entire body turned into nothingness at that moment and completely disappeared from the void. The void was an extremely strong space barrier. The storm of spirit and soul attacks shattered the void and fell on Long Yu's body. However, the storm of spirit and soul attacks had already been weakened and were easily blocked by his pure world body. Continue, kill. The power of the infinite grasp blossomed in the demigod's body and enveloped the soul race demigod with the powerful weakening light of the star branding mark. In the next moment, the mental attacks of the 8 demigods arrived and killed the soul race demigod instantly. There was only one soul race demigod left, but he ran very fast and was already close to the border of the soul race's territory. Let's go after him. At this point, the demigod Gaudi had complete trust in Long Yu. After the 3 soul race demigods were killed, the decline of the entire soul race could not be stopped at all. With Long Yu's help, the strategy this time was even easier. The 8 demigods, including Red Oriole, Moon Song, and a few other new demigods, all chased after the fleeing soul race demigod. At the front, the demigod experts of the Wine clan who had been notified also turned back and stopped the soul race demigod. Not long after, the demigod of the soul race was also unable to escape death and was completely killed. This demigod of the soul race was devoured by Long Yu with the ball of 9 underworlds, allowing the ball of 9 underworlds to grow a lot. However, as the sphere of Tartarus grew stronger and stronger, even devouring demigods didn't get much improvement. Perhaps devouring demigods with a higher density of power would have a better effect. However, Long Yu couldn't even withstand one attack from such existences. It was better not to provoke them for now. After the annihilation of the soul race, the other experts of the Wine clan, the human race, and the demon race would take care of the rest of the battle. Long Yu had just obtained a lot, and he wanted to consolidate his strength first. Also, they had just killed 6 soul race demigods, which meant that they had obtained the remains of 6 small worlds, which could be searched and looted. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.